A door appears right in front of him out of nowhere with no warning and no explanation. Shen Ye stares at it for a second, and even knowing it could be a trap, he steps inside. The moment he crosses it, the world completely changes. The atmosphere is different, the danger feels real. This isn't an illusion, it's another world. But then he realizes something insane. He can go back, and not just that, he can cross it as many times as he wants, explore, grow stronger, and bring that power back with him. And this is where everything begins. So without further ado, let's get into the video. The story begins with a frightened boy asking if he is seeing things and whether that is a door floating in the air. He looks behind, realizes there is nothing there, and wonders if it is some kind of magic trick. The boy opens the door and is pulled inside. Confused and unable to understand what is happening, he sees before him an empty place with cracks and blood along the walls and wonders how another space can exist inside the door. He also says it is very dark and asks what kind of place it is and whether anyone is there. A noise is heard, and in front of him appears a horrible and terrifying monster. The boy begins to scream and runs desperately toward the door, apologizing for disturbing it and wishing it a good day. After exiting through the door, he says that place is dangerous, hopes the creature does not come after him, and asks where the door went and whether it really disappeared. At that moment, someone congratulates him for awakening the World Link ability and says that they have finally found him. Frightened, the boy begins looking around and asks who is speaking. The voice tells him not to panic and explains that it is trapped in another world and is communicating with him telepathically. This interdimensional communication is limited, and if he does not want to lose his life, he must do exactly what he is told. The boy asks about this telepathic communication and what is happening. The voice tells him to open his backpack and look for a strange statue inside. Still confused, the boy opens the bag and starts searching until he finds a small, grotesque object. When he pulls it out, he realizes it is a terrifying statue, looking like a demonic skeleton with a huge horn on its head. Frightened, he asks if that is really it, and the voice confirms, saying that it is the cursed statue of the evil Ghost King. The voice explains that someone deliberately put it in his backpack to curse him, kill him, and even steal his soul. The boy is shocked to hear this, but the voice says that despite the attempt, he survived. At that moment, a flood of memories invades his mind. He begins to realize that these memories are not his own, and soon understands that the body he occupies belongs to a student named Shen Ye. The voice then explains that the soul of the original owner of this body was completely destroyed by the statue's curse. While trying to process everything, the boy also recovers memories from his own life and remembers that he died after overworking himself in a world called Blue Star. The very moment the original body lost its soul, his soul crossed dimensions and naturally occupied that empty body. The voice then explains that this was an extremely rare coincidence, and that when this curse fails to kill its target, it can end up granting unimaginable power. This is because the statue carries power accumulated over millions of years by stealing and devouring souls, and now all that energy is about to awaken inside him. Then the voice asks him to open the door again, stating that the door now belongs to him, and that it can appear thanks to his ability called World Link. Because he was so polite when entering the door, he obtained the title Polite Person. Damaged Gray title. Equipping this title grants the following bonus. When he acts politely, people have a slightly better impression of him. The boy asks about this title and says it sounds like a passive ability. The voice warns that its strength is fading and that he must be careful. Whoever placed that cursed statue to capture him will return when they realize he is alive, and they may already be on their way. The boy asks who is speaking and why they are telling him all this. The voice replies that it is because it needs him. The world he saw today is called the World of Nightmares, and it is also where she is imprisoned. He must become stronger, go to the depths of the World of Nightmares, and free her. When he does that, he will be greatly rewarded, but he must not lose his life before that. The boy then realizes the voice has vanished and thinks that he has barely arrived in this world, and already there are people trying to eliminate him. He wonders why, because he saw Shen's memories, and he does not seem to have enemies. So who would want to kill him? He decides to equip that title first. He currently has no way to defend himself, so he will have to go through the door again and see if he can obtain another title. But that terrifying skeleton is inside. Even so, it does not matter, he will go in. At worst, he can just run. As long as he stays close to the door, it probably will not be able to catch him. The boy thinks that skeleton looked incredibly strong, and there is no way he could defeat it, so he wonders if maybe trying to talk with it might work. He thinks communication is what makes humans human. A skeleton is just a finished person, a person eliminated, still technically a person. Maybe he can negotiate and convince it to help him defend himself from the enemies chasing him. With the Polite Person title, his chances should be good. The protagonist opens the door, stares at the skeleton, asks how it is doing, and says his name is Shen Ye, thinking of activating Polite Person. The The skeleton keeps staring, and the protagonist offers his most sincere apologies for interrupting its meal earlier. He thinks the title seems to be working and says he would truly like to be friends with it. The skeleton tries to grab him, but Shen dodges and asks whether it really has to be so violent since he only wanted a small conversation. The skeleton tries to grab him again, but yet exits through the door, falls onto the bed, and says, "That was close." It seems that if the door is destroyed, it simply disappears. He grumbles that he knew it, gray titles are garbage, and asks what new title he got this time. The system notifies him that titles can only be obtained once per day. He has already used today's opportunity and must try again tomorrow. The protagonist says that means he can obtain titles infinitely. But he thinks that if the skeleton keeps blocking the door, he will not be able to obtain better titles tomorrow either. The Eliminator could appear at any moment, so there is no time to waste. It is now or never. He will bet everything on his past life as a top-tier salesman. Shen opens the door, politely asks permission, apologizes for disturbing it, says he is back, and thinks he will close this deal. A very loud noise is heard. The skeleton is now missing one arm, and Yes says there is no point. It cannot eat him, and he can freely travel between the two worlds. He only wants to talk about it. The skeleton tries to strike him again, but realizes it cannot reach him, and the protagonist asks whether it is now interested in hearing his proposal. The skeleton turns around and begins walking away. Shen asks it to wait and not leave. He realizes the skeleton was injured while chewing people. A new bone was slowly growing from the fracture in its left arm, so he asks if that is its left arm. The skull, ribs, and spine are all damaged. The skeleton looks back, and Yes says he cannot allow it to eat him. But the world has many great things for bones, like calcium tablets specifically designed to heal bones. In addition, there are tons of other supplements far more nutritious than he is. If they become friends, he can help buy them. After all, where he comes from, there is a saying, "One would take a bullet for a friend." Buying calcium is nothing compared to that. Although in his case, taking a bullet probably would not be much of a problem either. Then the protagonist asks what it thinks about that. At that moment, Shen notices a light. The skeleton is releasing its power. Shen thinks that is not good and believes he will have to try something else. Then the system notifies him that he has received a contract. Ye realizes it is not an attack but a contract. It seems it worked. On the paper, it says the signatory is the progenitor of Shadow Bones, Gilded Corpse Maker, defeater of the Lord of the Underworld Mictlantecuhtli. Shen comments that these monsters really have serious credentials and asks why there is a pause after the name. It also says that the defeated Lord of the Underworld Mictlantecuhtli is the skeleton's battlefield acquisition officer. Contract content: equal exchange. Addendum: carried out 7 millennia ago when humanity, with its talents for culture, art, and technology, caused the eternal bell of destiny to ring. At that time, even the gods noticed. It hopes he can help restore its strength. It never makes contracts with beings other than gods, so he had better understand the value of this contract. This is a fair contract. If either party is dissatisfied, it can be terminated at any time. Sign the name on the line below to complete the contract. Ye is the human who overcame the curse of infernal beings, gate between nightmares and reality, sole controller of the two realms. Contract complete. Somewhere else, a voice says Ye has just left the hospital and must inform them immediately if he feels unwell. He should take it easy, stay home for a few days, and avoid stress. He should also take that tonic and drink it on an empty stomach because it will help him. And there are the calcium tablets he requested. The protagonist thanks his parents. His mother says he does not need to thank them. Health and safety are what matter most. Shen thinks that in his past life, he was an orphan, so having the attention of a family feels very good. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door and says they are from the East Precinct and are there because of his case. Incidents like that happen countless times every year, are completely unpredictable, and when they occur, all one can do is accept fate. Fortunately, he recovered, which is already a blessing in the midst of misfortune. Ye thinks no. He says the real Shen was eliminated by a monster summoned through a curse, and asks if the next time something like that happens, everyone should simply leave it to fate. The police officer observes him and says he knows he is upset, but there is something he must say. The superiors have already approved it. That hospital will soon be abandoned and no one will be allowed to enter again. He can rest assured there will be no more victims. The protagonist notices that the 3 stars on the badge mean he is a sergeant. He is still very young. Shen thanks him for telling him and says he was just worried someone might be after him. The officer replies that he is only a high school student with a simple social circle, and they did not find anyone holding a grudge against him. That is all for now. They have other duties to fulfill and will not disturb him any longer. Shen thinks the curse of the Ghost King statue seems incredibly powerful. Not only can the police do nothing about it, but even the government finds it troublesome. It is obvious that even the police fear it and prefer to keep their distance. But as an ordinary high school student, he wonders why someone would use something so powerful against him. Later, in the same place, the sergeant approaches again. Ye says he thought he had already left and asks what brought him back. The sergeant hands him a card and says his contact information is on it. The protagonist thanks him. The sergeant says that if anything seems strange, he should call him directly. Shen looks at the card reading Luo Feiquan and thinks that perhaps not everyone in the police is useless. Even so, he wonders whether he can trust him, or rather, whether he can really help him. He also notices that the sergeant does not seem to be strictly following orders. If the police and government cannot do anything, what could a simple sergeant do? Besides, now that the news that he is alive has spread, whoever wants to eliminate him will not remain idle. The protagonist begins wondering whether these people might also go after his family, and concludes he must become stronger as quickly as possible. After that, Shen opens the door and asks whether the skeleton is there. The creature approaches, and Ye, holding a bag, says he brought the calcium tablets it wanted. The skeleton points to something else inside the bag, and the protagonist asks if it prefers that tonic. The skeleton releases its energy and words appear on the paper saying the other party desires the tonic in his possession. As a battlefield acquisition officer, the giant skeleton selected an item from its spoils of war collection, a relic of an enemy soldier, offering it in exchange for the tonic. It is a low-level crystal nightmare, a relic created by the High Elves, ancient enemies of the giant skeleton. This crystal can directly instill knowledge, abilities, techniques, or information into the user. In the Kingdom of Nightmares, war is the eternal theme. Every civilization and all knowledge exists solely to increase combat capability. Shen comments that a crystal capable of granting knowledge and skills sounds interesting and accepts the trade. The crystals begin to float, and the system notifies him that he learned Moonlit Deer Step. It is a basic movement technique used by alien soldiers. The undead giant and the elves have been at war for centuries, and to counter the undead, the elves created this technique. It allows the user to escape, run, and dodge with great agility. Ye thinks he never imagined exchanging a simple tonic for an elven movement technique. At least now he has some way to defend himself. The skeleton takes the ingredients it requested and disappears into the darkness. The protagonist comments that it still hides in the dark even after they signed a contract and wonders what all the secrecy is about. In any case, he decides to start practicing Moonlit Deer Step for now. When he hears his parents returning home, he realizes it is better to go to his room. The system then notifies him. Moonlit Deer Step, first form, evasion. Required agility points, 3. After evaluating his physical attributes, the system indicates he has only 2 agility points and needs 1 more to use evasion. Shen asks whether it works like a game and wonders how he can increase his agility. At that moment, a voice appears saying he is truly alive and wondering how that is possible. Shen turns and sees a frightening man who says he wants to find out what he is really made of. The man advances, trying to strike him at all costs, but Ye manages to dodge. The attacker comments that he is not bad. The protagonist thinks that was close and realizes the man is an eliminator. He wonders if someone has already been sent after him and asks if there is anything he can help him with. The eliminator replies that he can simply lose his life. The system then notifies him that the crystal granted him knowledge. In the Kingdom of Nightmares, abilities, techniques, titles, and equipment have their own rankings from lowest to highest. Broken Gray, Normal White, Excellent Green, Exceptional Blue, and Purple 1 in a million. The higher the rank, the more powerful the effect. The Polite Person title belongs to the Broken Gray level. While dodging attacks, Shen thinks it really is an extremely low-rank title, which is why it barely works. Still, he can use Moonlit Deer Step. The Eliminator comments that those are just cheap tricks and those idiotic steps will not save him from a bullet. Ye narrowly dodges, and the system sends a friendly reminder. Titles can be consumed to gain status points. The higher the title's rank, the more points obtained. The protagonist asks if those things are consumables, and why the system did not say that earlier. Then new notifications appear. Title consumed successfully. Status points received. 1. Agility increased from 2 to 3. First form, evasion, now available. Shen immediately directs the point into agility. Ye then releases his power, opens the door, and runs inside. The Eliminator chases him, saying not to think he can escape. Suddenly, the pursuer stops and asks whether that is a secret passage. The protagonist, already near the door, waves goodbye. The door closes. The Eliminator runs toward it, but at that moment, the skeleton appears before him, opens its mouth, devours him, and regenerates its arm. Meanwhile, Shen breathes heavily and says, "That was close. There are probably more Eliminators coming." He cannot waste time and must quickly find some self-defense cards. The system notifies him that the sacrifice of a living creature pleased the other party. Adhering to the principle of equal exchange, the other party offers items in return, and the contract is recognized. Pale Shadow Crown, Silver War Medal. Ye is surprised to see 2 at once, and both are green quality. The Pale Shadow Crown is excellent green equipment, an item imbued with high-level shadow magic from the abyss of darkness. Anyone who wears it can disguise themselves as a member of the elven race. The Silver War Medal is a symbol of honor and merit within the elven forces of the world of nightmares, granted only to soldiers who achieved great feats. The protagonist comments that the skeleton is very pragmatic. At first it wanted to eat him, but now that it understands the value of exchange, it is practically showering him with gifts. Pale Shadow Crown, he decides to try using it. Shen takes on the appearance of an elf and is very surprised to see that it truly works, saying it is incredible. As soon as he obtains another title tomorrow, he plans to go straight to elven territory to get more things. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door and asks if he is home. Ye wonders who could be knocking and hopes it is not another eliminator. The person on the other side asks if it is really him and says he is fine, thank God. Then he introduces himself. Chen Haoyu. The protagonist returns to his normal appearance and realizes it is his best friend, the reason he went to the hospital that day to visit him. Shen opens the door and Haoyu immediately hugs him, saying he scared him. Chen cries while hugging him and apologizes, saying it was his fault Shen was dragged into that mess. Ye replies that it is not his fault, that he simply had bad luck and that he should not worry because he is perfectly fine. A woman asks if he came to see her son and the protagonist realizes his mother has returned. His mother says his father went to see the grandfather to try to obtain more of those super tonics and asks whether he has already taken the tonic. Shen replies yes. Chen asks about the super tonic and comments that it is extremely rare, something even rich people have difficulty obtaining. His family must have very strong connections. The mother says it indeed took great effort to obtain it. Haoyu comments that his parents truly care for him and that he needs to recover in time for the school exams. Ye then thinks about the high school exams and remembers that the original owner of this body was a high school student going through very important tests. Because of the curse, he missed the first exam while he was in the hospital. Chen comments that with his perfect grades, he could have entered any top school and says it is all his fault. The mother intervenes and tells him not to blame himself. Her son missed the strength test, but if he performs well in the agility test, he can still enter a good school. The protagonist thinks the exams in this world are different from anything he has seen. They are not only academic, they also test physical strength and agility. So that is what the statistics mean. No wonder Moonlit Deerstep has an agility requirement. Even so, he is being hunted at that moment. Going to school would be like painting a target on his back. Shen begins to tremble and thinks maybe he should give up the exams. His mother notices, approaches him, hugs him, and says that if he does not want to take the test, it is fine. They only want him to be safe and well. Ye looks at her and says not to worry because she does not know how strong he is now. He thinks that if he said he would give up the exams, she would agree immediately. Even so, the protagonist says he will go to school the next day to attend the review sessions. Memories continue flooding his mind. His grandfather and the entire family appear to be very important and influential people. However, his parents have a terrible relationship with the grandfather and the rest of the family. They never asked for help and always lived through their own efforts. Although life is not luxurious, it is decent enough. Therefore, there is absolutely no chance they could afford a super tonic like that. They probably had to humble themselves and beg the grandfather to obtain it. Even so, their real son has already been eliminated, and that is one more reason for him not to let all that effort go to waste. The three of them end up having dinner together. The next day, in another place, many students are studying. Shen looks at the material: body mechanics, introduction to psychic energy, strength training. The curriculum in that world is really different. He thinks it is a relief that there are so many people at school because no eliminator would dare act in a place like that. If he can enter a good high school, there will probably be much more powerful teachers who can protect him. At that moment, a student approaches and says Zhao is looking for him and that she is in the corridor. The protagonist thinks he remembers her as Ye's friend. She used to constantly bother him about studying and asks if she is looking for him. Zhao replies that she heard he returned to prepare for the exams and that he did well on the first one, so he must be feeling confident about the rest. He will probably enter the province's elite high school. Shen congratulates her. Zhao then says she only wanted to say that he should not look for her anymore. The people around hear it and begin teasing, saying the school beauty is rejecting him. Zhao explains that she means they will soon follow separate paths. They belong to different worlds and eventually will have nothing to talk about. They do not need to continue this, but they can still be friends. Ye wonders if he missed an exam and now she came only to twist the knife, thinking that is too much. Zhao says she deleted his contact information and hopes he lives well from now on. The protagonist replies that he remembers that during all these years she always came to his classroom to find him and that he never looked for her. In fact, he never wanted to be friends with her in the first place. With the exams approaching, he hopes she is serious and stops bothering him so he can study in peace. People begin commenting that Shen was the top student and Zhao was always chasing him. Now that he missed an exam, she publicly abandoned him. The girl beside Zhao says he received so many gifts from her and asks if that is how he talks to her, saying he is a disappointment. Yibing, crying, says they were friends. Ye thinks she is clearly underestimating his top-tier sales abilities and replies that yes, he accepted her gifts. But accepting gifts does not mean accepting her. Some people say they agree. The protagonist continues saying that if she really cared about him, she would not try to tie him down with gifts. She has the right to find someone better. He has nothing else to say. If she wants the gifts back, he will pay for them, but she should not even think about them continuing to be friends. The girl comments that he is a jerk. Others say he is the worst because Zhao was completely in love with him and he treats her that way. They ask if he thinks he is so important just because he has good grades and how he dares to embarrass her like that. Even so, Shen simply walks away. Yibing thinks everyone believes they are defending her, but that would completely destroy Shen. Now he appears to be the rejected one. With everyone watching, his reputation is ruined. Suddenly someone steps in front of Ye and orders him to stop right there, saying she did not give him permission to leave. The protagonist looks and asks if he is not Sun Ming, the third-ranked student, and says class is about to begin so he needs to move aside. Sun replies that he was absent from school for several days and is behind on the news because he has become much stronger. Now Shen is no longer the top student. If he does not want some bones broken, he had better apologize to Bingbing immediately. Shen says he misunderstood everything. Zhao was the one who asked him to come, he was not bothering anyone. But fine, whatever, he will apologize. Ye apologizes and says she won so she can keep bothering him if she wants, and asks if she is happy now. The protagonist runs away and people are surprised to realize he was crying. Zhao says she was not trying to force him, and that he should not listen to Sun. She herself becomes confused, wondering why she said those things and thinking that idiot Ming is messing with her head. Sun is also confused because he came to support Yibing and now everything is chaotic. He asks if anyone saw that and what just happened. Sun moves forward to throw a punch but Shen dodges. People are surprised and Sun himself asks what that was. Some comment on his speed. He seems much more agile than before. If he had put any strength into that kick, Ming would already be on the ground. Ye releases an intimidating aura and asks what else he wants. At that moment, someone arrives asking what everyone is doing gathered there, and says the exams are about to start so everyone should go to the field. The students run immediately afraid of being scolded by the teachers. Sun says this is not over yet. On the field, the protagonist is stretching when Chen approaches and comments that the test will take a long time. Just look at the line. It will be a while before their turn comes. He mentions that a new comic shop opened behind the school and asks if Shen wants to check it out while they wait. Shen suddenly remembers something. Yesterday he was so tired he fell asleep the moment his head touched the pillow and forgot to collect the title of the day. This is the perfect time to obtain a new title. He replies that he will pass and asks Chen to hold his place in line, saying his stomach is bothering him and he needs to go to the bathroom. Then Ye walks away and enters another place. Someone who had been spying on him follows holding something in their hand. This person begins searching for him inside the bathroom and asks where he went since they saw him enter there. The protagonist, now with the appearance of an elf, crosses the door searching for the skeleton. Suddenly he notices a pistol on the floor, checks it, and realizes it is loaded. He says that at least now he has something to defend himself with in elven territory. Although he has never used a gun before, he wonders where the skeleton went because time waits for no one. A light begins to shine and a voice calls him. Shen asks if it is that mysterious voice. The voice replies that it does not have much power to help him, but says he must take that. It is a human symbol. Suddenly Ye disappears and appears somewhere else that looks like a forest. The protagonist says his head is spinning and asks if the teleport worked and whether he is really in elven territory. He observes the dagger the mysterious voice gave him and wonders why he received it. Suddenly someone asks who is there. They are 3 elves who call him Fern. Shen is surprised. The elves say he finally arrived and took long enough. If he had not appeared soon, they would have had to declare the mission a failure and return. The protagonist replies he had a small problem, so he is late. While speaking, he realizes something important. The 3 are wearing the pale shadow crown just like him. In other words, they are not actually elves. They say it does not matter because at least he arrived. They already gained the trust of that elven tribe. The villagers believe they are heroic soldiers recovering from injuries suffered on the battlefield. The plan is to attack at night, eliminate the tribe chief, and seize the treasures. Then they ask if he is ready. Shen touches his forehead and says, "Of course," saying his hands are already itching. One of the elves tells him to stop touching there and warns that he cannot remove the pale shadow crown. Ye replies he was just adjusting it because it is not very comfortable. The other says that if he exposes the true undead identity, they will all be doomed. Shen thinks it was exactly as he suspected. The same metal, the same crown, those 3 are also undead. He says not to worry because when he is working, nothing goes wrong. Inside, however, he thinks that skeleton must be the Fern they are talking about, and the whole problem has been dumped on him. The three say they need to return to the village and he must hurry because the delay already cost valuable time. Shen realizes they move so fast he can barely keep up even at maximum speed. These undead are extremely strong. After some time, they stop. One of them says he must enter the village. To pass through the gates, he needs the chief's permission. That part is safe. He only needs to show the badge. The three will handle the eliminator outside. He must deal with the chief. Shen asks if he is being assigned to eliminate the chief alone. They answer yes and ask if there is any problem or if he is backing out. Ye asks if they really think he would back out and replies, absolutely not. He says they can leave it to him. Inside, however, he thinks he is completely doomed. If he dared say no, those three would probably eliminate him immediately. But assassinating the elven chief inside his own fortress is practically a suicide mission. In any case, he is already doomed and now understands why that skeleton threw all the responsibility onto him. The village guard observes the silver war medal and says they can open the gates. He recognizes Shen as a brave soldier from the front lines and escorts him to the chief. As they walk, some elven women smile at him. The guard tells him to enter because the chief was already waiting and knew of his arrival. The partner tells him to go ahead and meet the chief while they rest there and wait for him. Shen thinks they are actually just making sure he does not run away. Now he is caught in the middle of a conflict between undead and elves. Even so, there is a positive side. If he can somehow complete this mission, he might secure a truly incredible title. Then the protagonist enters in silence. The chief has his back turned, holding a book. When he notices Shen's presence, he closes the book and welcomes him. At that moment, Shen's eyes widen as he receives a notification. His door has the ability to analyze titles, and now he can see the titles of other beings. Spirit of the countless forests, heir to the ancient throne of the tree, mighty lord of nature, grand master of the arcane arts, guardian of the kingdom of nightmares, one of the 5 heads of the world. Yi wonders if all of those really are that elf's titles. Meanwhile, his own title is only polite person. He realizes he was completely naive to think he could pull this off. Those undead outside are far stronger than he is, and even they would not be crazy enough to face someone like that. Polite person against spirit of the countless forests, heir to the ancient throne of the tree, mighty lord of nature, grand master of the arcane arts, guardian of the kingdom of nightmares, one of the 5 heads of the world. Simply perfect. The chief then says he appreciates his efforts and that he may rest well in the village before continuing his journey. The protagonist uses the door's magic and teleports to the dining hall. His partners say he has arrived and that he should eat something. It is still early and they can rest a little. Soon the target will join the party. When he lowers his guard, that will be their chance to act and they will provide cover. Shen thinks about that cover and realizes that in truth they intend to use the confusion to escape. If things continue like this, it is the same as waiting for his own end. He needs to do something. An elf girl approaches, calling him uncle, and asks if she may request a dance. She says dancing with a hero from the front lines would be a great honor. Ye replies that she can, but he does not know how to dance. The elf says not to worry because she can guide him. Then the two begin to dance. Shen thinks that at this rate he will end up being exposed. If not for this absurd situation, dancing with a fairy like her would truly be wonderful. He needs to find a way out. The elf asks why he is so quiet and whether his brothers are like that too. Could the battle on the front lines have been so intense that it wounded his spirit? Shen replies that no, he was just thinking. He says he dances very badly, apologizes for her invitation, and asks her name. The elf replies that her name is Lonnie. Yes says he would like to do a trick for her as an apology and asks if he may. Lonnie gets excited and says, of course, that he can show it. She comments that actually his dancing was not that bad. Then she gives him a bracelet as a small reward for the trick, but warns that if it is not impressive, she will want the bracelet back. The protagonist replies that it is no problem. Shen climbs onto the table and asks everyone to pay attention. He says that now he is going to show a trick that no one there has ever seen. A great human transformation. He claims he can transform into a human. Everyone grows curious and tells him to show them, because they have never seen a magician capable of transforming into a human. The 3 brothers watch and wonder what he is doing, whether he really knows that kind of transformation magic. They never imagined he would have enough intelligence to invent something like that and blend in among the elves. Ye asks everyone to look carefully. Then he removes the crown and turns back into a human again, saying that trick is for the beautiful Miss Lonnie. People are impressed. When they see his ears and eyebrows, they realize he really is a young human. Lonnie thanks him and says he can transform back now. Shen then says the secret is simple. He can transform into a human because his 3 brothers also know how to do that magic. All they have to do is remove the crowns they are wearing, and they will transform into undead. Everyone goes into shock when they hear the word undead. The entire hall goes on alert and people begin asking what is happening. Ye says that when his brothers transform, he will also return to his previous form. At that moment, someone asks when that door appeared. The protagonist enters the door and disappears. People are shocked and wonder what kind of magic that was. They quickly decide to capture the 3 undead first and are careful, because they do not know what other tricks they may have. The 3 are tied up. A voice then says that he wanted to play with them a little longer, but what a shame. It is the chief. He says the undead tried to infiltrate his organization, but they failed to realize that the human race had already infiltrated their group and was even controlling the missions. A complete irony. The 3 brothers say there must be some misunderstanding and claim they have an emblem. However, when the crowns are removed, they immediately transform into undead monsters. The chief says that Crown carries high-level shadow magic from the dark abyss and that it is constant, something that truly exceeded his expectations. The entire village had been infiltrated by evil spies, and with that, they can now find their weakness and fight them. Even so, he says that this time, he has one doubt. Lonnie keeps looking at the place where the door appeared and thinks that he will return. Inside the door, the protagonist comments that he did not expect the door to change in order to adapt to the surrounding environment. That was far too risky, and he needs to remember that lesson. Shen looks at the skeleton and calls him an idiot, saying that while he was risking his life in elven territory, the skeleton was there having a banquet. The skeleton asks if he is still alive. Ye then asks if he could speak the human language and says that he gave him the pale shadow crown on purpose, trying to get him killed. The skeleton asks how he survived and wants him to tell everything, saying that if he tells him, he will pay a fair price. The protagonist, irritated, asks if he really thinks he's going to tell him. He says this is no longer about the reward because he nearly turned him into history and now he holds a grudge. A paper appears saying that the other party is being sincere and, according to the principle of equal exchange, has prepared for him a powerful, indestructible spell. Shen asked whether he thinks he can buy him with that and whether he is insulting his character. The skeleton replies that he gave him the pale shadow crown because he is human. Elves and humans are allies, so he had a chance of survival. If it had been the skeleton himself in that situation, he would certainly already be finished. As an apology, the other party exceeded the principle of equal exchange and decided to gift him a primordial nightmare crystal. The primordial nightmare crystal contains 3 high-level undead evolutionary talents. He can choose one of them to merge with his own soul and gain that ability. The skeleton explains that talent is a special personal ability that can be used without spending energy. That primordial nightmare crystal is the foundation of the undead race and extremely precious. The only reason he is still alive is because the others want that crystal. They covet the talents contained within it, the legacy it carries. That is why they did not eliminate him earlier. Now he is giving that opportunity to Shen. They would never imagine that he would leave something like that in the hands of a human. Shen replies that he is a man of principle. Since he is being so sincere, he will forgive him this time, but he must remember that there will not be a next time. Suddenly, the pressure rises and attacks are launched. The skeleton tells him to choose because he can take one of those primordial talents and make it his own. A paper appears with the options. Shadow whispers, Evolvable Novice. Using a corpse as a conduit, the finished must answer the call, crawling up from hell to tell what they know. Only then will souls find peace. Finalization is the deepest education. Secret body of the arcanes. Any force that could eliminate him will turn his body into arcane remains, making him temporarily immune to all mortal fates for 5 seconds. It can be used again after 1 day. Those who try to control his life and his finalization will not meet a good end. Resurrection of the finished. He must create a soul flame and place it into a fallen body. The soul flame will merge with the body and revive it. There are many kinds of resurrection spells, but this is one of the deepest and most primordial secret arts, capable of reviving the finished and representing the fundamental power of the undead race. The protagonist thinks that resurrection of the finished is useless to him right now. Secret body of the arcanes could allow him to escape finalization for a few seconds, which sounds invincible, but after those seconds, he could still lose his life. As for Shadow Whispers, it seems useless at first glance, but it is exactly what he needs now. Knowing information is the fastest way to discover who wants to eliminate him, so he chooses Shadow Whispers. A very loud sound is emitted. After that, still in the same place, Shen realizes that he can feel the whispers of the undead. The skeleton asks if he really chose that. Ye asks what is wrong with it. The skeleton replies that nothing is wrong, only that this ability is not very good for combat. In his memory, those unwanted ancient monarchs always chose the third option. A few selected the second. No one had ever chosen this one. The skeleton then asks whether he can now tell him what really happened, because that is very important to him. He explains that the original target of the assassination was supposed to be an elven priestess. As for the man Shen just saw, he is the most powerful high priest of the elven race. The protagonist thinks it is no surprise that man had such impressive titles as Spirit of the Countless Forests, Heir to the Ancient Throne of the Tree, Mighty Lord of Nature, Grand Master of the Arcane Arts, Guardian of the Kingdom of Nightmares, and one of the 5 heads of the world. The skeleton explains that the 3 Nightmare Knights captured by the elves can no longer watch him or threaten him. This is the only chance he has. Then the skeleton runs off. Shen asks where he is going but soon gives up on knowing. He says to leave that aside because everyone has their own problems, and he needs to take care of himself first. The system then notifies him that opening that door granted him an appraisal title, one of our own, green title, excellent. By using this appraisal title, he receives the following bonus. When he tells the target that they are from the same class, the target will treat him as one of their own for 10 seconds. After that, the target will forget everything that happened before. This title can only be used once per day. The target's total attributes cannot exceed 3 times his own. Otherwise, the target may resist the title's effect. He also obtains the Bracelet of Nature's Blessing. Shen comments that bracelet was given by Lonnie and that it truly is green quality, something very good. The system confirms that the green accessory is excellent and rare. When wearing this bracelet, spiritual power increases slowly over time. Ye comments that it is not bad at all. A short sword, a green rank title, a green bracelet, and a pistol. It was a great haul. He needs to keep those things well hidden and not let anyone see them. Somewhere else, someone announces the agility test. Chen is next, so he should get ready and begin. The protagonist cheers for him from the stands. While running, Hao Yu thanks him for the support and says that this is easy, that he can handle it. Suddenly, Chen trips, and some people laugh, saying he is a fool and that it serves him right because he was acting too full of himself. The examiner says he scored 71 points and should be grateful that this is not the end of the road. Then the examiner calls the protagonist and asks him to prepare himself. Ye takes the test with great agility. People are impressed, saying that he is very fast. The jets of ink cannot hit him, and his posture is very good, as if he were gliding on ice. Some comment on whether, after leaving the hospital, he became even faster. The protagonist thinks that with the experience he has, that test is very easy. He only has to use a bit of moonlit deer step to dodge the ink jets. From a distance, a man with glasses watches and comments that boy has impressive agility. The young man beside him explains that he used to be first in the class, but he missed the first test, which was a shame. That is why he called the man over to see if there is any chance of helping him. The man replies that he seems to have a good grasp of elven footwork. If his mental strength is also good, maybe it will be possible to give him a chance. The young man asks whether full marks in mental strength would not be excessive, and comments that he remembers Shin's mental strength was nothing special. Even so, they say it is better to wait for the result of the mental strength test. Maybe he will surprise them. However, only full marks would meet the requirements. The examiner then announces that Shen obtained full marks in agility and comments that if he had not missed the first test, it would have been perfect. The protagonist thanks him and says he still has not given up on entering high school. Soon after, lunchtime is announced. Whoever wants to eat should go now because the remaining test will continue in the afternoon. Chen comments that no wonder Shen is so good. After all, he got full marks. He suggests they go eat something. Shen replies that he can go wash up first, while he himself will head to the study room to read a little. Somewhere else, Ye places his face on the book and complains. He says that mathematics, physics, and chemistry he can more or less keep up with, because they are similar to those of the old world. But language and history are a mess. The history, the important people, the events, and even the literary works of that world are completely different from those of the old world, which leaves him utterly confused. Suddenly, someone approaches and flips the table over together with the books. It is Sun, saying that he already said this was not over yet. The protagonist asks if Zhao was the one who sent them. Sun replies that she does not even care about him. During the time Shen was not at school, his strength reached level 27. Now he wants to see who is better, Shen's 2 points of agility or his own 2 points of strength. They are going to find out who the true leader of the year is. Shen asks why all of this, since they are classmates. He uses the trade ally and says that there's no reason for such a fight. Soon the ability affects everyone there, and Sun says he has no choice because Yibing cried and asked him to take revenge. The others also say they did not want to fight, but they like her very much, and besides, Shen seemed very arrogant, so they wanted to teach him a lesson. However, they end up saying it is better to leave it alone. Since they are classmates, maybe it is better not to do anything. Ye thinks that, thankfully, this is only a school fight. No one there truly wants to eliminate him. The effect of same class member lasts only 10 seconds, and it is already almost ending. When the effect ends, the others say that now they really are going to finish him off. The protagonist thinks that is the problem. He He can only use the title once per day, a truly annoying limitation. The system then notifies him that he has unlocked a special entry, receiving 3 attribute points. Shen decides to put the points into strength. The system informs him that, besides the 3 newly obtained points, he can also redistribute the point he had put into agility. He thinks about it and realizes he can alter his attributes freely. That way, he could stop being a fast fighter and turn into a tank whenever he wants. So he decides to place all 4 points into strength. New notifications appear confirming the successful increase. His strength rises significantly. A boy grabs him from behind and says not to run this time, wanting to see him face Ming head-on. Sun advances with a clenched fist and asks if he is ready to break some ribs. Ming lands the blow, but the protagonist feels no pain at all. Sun becomes confused until he realizes his own fingers are breaking. A normal human, without special training, has basic strength and agility both equal to 1. The protagonist easily breaks free and punches the face of the boy who was holding him. People are shocked to see that and begin asking how he managed to withstand Sun's punch without suffering any damage. Strength, as a basic attribute, does not represent only brute force. It includes the resistance of bones and muscles, the resilience of internal organs, the elasticity of the meridians, the explosive release of inner energy, and the level of cellular renewal. All those factors come together and form what is called an individual's strength. Shen says he already failed one subject, and even so, they came to attack him right during the final exam. They gathered together out of jealousy without caring that they might destroy someone's life. Sun, lying on the ground, says that he deserves to lose his life. Ye lifts him up and says that if it had been another classmate in his situation, or even the former Shen, they probably would have beaten him and left him gravely injured. Ming then says it was their mistake and asks him to forgive them this time. The protagonist, still holding Ming, says that he humiliated him, assaulted him, and tried to destroy his future, and asks whether he still thinks he deserves forgiveness. Shen then throws him against the wall, producing a loud crash. Sun begins to scream for help. At that moment, the teacher opens the door and asks what is going on in there. Several students are lying on the floor, gravely injured, while Shen is sitting on the ground. He says the teacher finally arrived and that they were bullying him. The teacher asks what he means and whether he really beat them all up like that and is still saying he was the victim of bullying. Zhao watches the scene and realizes her calculations were wrong. Those few students were not even opponents for Shen. If he is that strong, she thinks, then now it no longer matters. Her partner asks whether she is regretting it. Yibing thinks that she is regretting it. If she had called Shen to talk, encouraged him to keep trying, and arranged to stay in contact after high school, perhaps everything would have been different. Zhao lowers her head and realizes there is no turning back. He created a huge disturbance, injuring 8 students, and will probably have his qualification for the final exam cancelled. Her goal has been achieved. Shen will now be considered useless and her future is already secured. She only regrets not realizing earlier that he was that kind of bastard. Sun, lying on the stretcher, keeps staring at her. Yibing notices the look and thinks that this cannot be happening. That idiot kept looking at her the whole time. She wonders if he is trying to drag her into that mess and thinks that he must not look at her that way. Zhao hopes he says nothing and wishes he would simply keep his mouth shut. Ming calls out to Bing Bing. Yibing looks at him, begins to cry and says Shen hurt him like that. She declares that she is going to call the police immediately. The protagonist thinks that with this move, she managed to take a beating and still free herself from the blame, leaving all the responsibility on him. The teacher comments that now that a student called the police, the situation has become even more complicated. He orders everyone to return to studying and disperse. Shen must follow him to the teacher's room. Somewhere else, the principal comments that the students are excellent, at least some of them. Qian replies that it is not that he does not want to help, but if they do not meet the minimum requirements of the group, what can he do? He says he still has other matters to handle and that he will take his leave for today. At that moment, someone comes running and says that Shen and Sun fought and that the police arrived. The principal asks whether it is really necessary to report that at such a moment. The staff member replies that he needs to see this and shows him the video of the fight between them. The principal says it is just high school students fighting and asks what is so important about it. However, while they watch the video, something catches their attention, even Qian's. When the police arrive, they also analyze the video and ask Shen whether he had already started recording from the beginning. The protagonist replies that yes, because he was afraid they might eliminate him, and thinks it was a good thing he started recording. The police officer explains that even with the video, he still needs to accompany them to give a statement. The final result will only be determined when the medical report on the injuries is ready. The teacher intervenes and says that this student already failed one subject because of an anomalous accident. If they take him now, he will end up missing another test. He asks what else needs to be investigated if there is already video proof. The officer asks him to calm down and says that he will only return to provide clarification, that it will not take long, and that if the injuries are not serious, everything will be resolved quickly. The teacher comments that in that case, they may end up ruining his future. Meanwhile, Shen thinks he cannot waste time. He needs to keep switching his attributes to force the body to adapt quickly to those changes. The principal approaches and says it was a good thing he recorded everything on his phone. Otherwise, the injuries of the other students would have been enough to get him expelled. The teacher comments that Qian finally arrived. Qian agrees and says that Shen's physical condition and abilities already surpass those of the other students. Fighting with them made no sense at all. He watched the video of the fight, and even though it was only half the recording, he noticed that Shen controlled his own strength during the battle. He asked if that was really the case. Ye confirms it and says he was afraid of ending up eliminating someone. Qian replies that he truly is a young man of great character. The combat technique he demonstrated during the simulated exam was perfect, and he already deserves a recommendation. He says he would like to speak with him. The protagonist takes the card he hands him and thinks about what the Human Martial Arts Group means. It is an organization that preserves the legacy of various forms of martial knowledge, possessing vast intellectual property rights and copyrights over countless martial arts manuals. For ordinary people, entering that group is like a fish leaping through the Dragon Gate, leaving the common class behind. It is the true path to ascension. Shen observes Qian and realizes that his mere presence already gives the feeling that he has no weak point at all. No matter how he distributes his attributes, he would not even be able to touch him. Qian then asks the intelligence system to assess his strength, saying that it seems to be at least 4.5. He asks whether Shen can tell him what the exact value is. The intelligence system is the superior AI of that world, capable of accurately assessing a person's qualities. Ye thinks that is impressive. If he has the protection of someone like Qian, he will not need to worry about eliminators. So he replies that his strength is 5. The principal and the teacher are surprised. Qian also shows surprise and says he truly did not expect that. The protagonist asks if that value is very high. Qian explains that at the elementary education level, reaching 4.5 already exceeds the evaluation standard. Reaching 5 is even more extraordinary. With that level of strength, he would already be capable of operating some models of combat armor and using ancient weapons, even if they are damaged or only of common level. In addition, his performance on the movement exam was perfect, which already guarantees the right to a recommendation. He can join the group. Qian says he will arrange a new evaluation for him. Normally that would not be permitted, but in order not to waste a talent like his, the group has authorization to suggest to the Department of Education that they carry out reevaluations and additional tests for certain special candidates. So it is decided that someone will help arrange everything for him. As for the investigation into the fight, that will be up to the authorities. But the timing of the reevaluation will be taken into consideration. Qian then asks, just out of curiosity, what his mental power level is. His agility already reached the standard, so that will not affect the evaluation. The protagonist thinks he cannot seem perfect in everything, so he decides that a mental power level of 3 should be enough. He raises 3 fingers. Qian smiles. The teacher is even more surprised and asks whether 3 is already considered high, commenting that his mental power truly is not ordinary. Qian asks whether he can demonstrate it, explaining that a level of 3 is already enough to move objects with the mind. He suggests that Shen try moving a chair. Ye thinks that he only needs to raise the mental power attribute to 3 in order to do that. At that moment, the police officer tells them to stop. His partner asks whether they are leaving now. The officer replies by asking what else he expected. A student with strength 5, perfect movement, agility of at least 4, and mental power nearing 3 can only mean one thing. That means he has the potential to reach the top. A genius of that level cannot be controlled by ordinary people. They can only endure this situation for a little longer. Qian becomes very excited and says he never imagined he would witness a day like this. He begins to recite, "Once a forgotten beggar lay in the streets. Today his song makes even the gods bow to its rhythm when the time comes. The cosmos grants him power, and he will fly to the realm where light never loses its life. Today is the day of the lucky student, and also his own." The principal comments that it is a beautiful song and says he has never heard such a lovely voice. The protagonist finds it strange and wonders if he should sing too, but realizes he would not even know how to do it. Qian asks the two of them for a moment, saying he would like to speak with that young man in private. He lights a cigarette and asks what his goal in life is. Shen replies that his own name already contains his goal. Qian says that is a good beginning and asks what his heart truly desires. Ye answers that, at the very least, he wants to be strong enough so that no one can knock him down again. He wants to be capable of protecting himself and his family. Qian says that today is the day he takes the first step toward his dream and asks him to attack. The protagonist calls him a strange and frightening old man. Qian smiles and explains that he does not want words but fists. Shen takes an attacking stance and thinks about redistributing his points to strength. He clenches his fist while Qian observes him. Suddenly, the protagonist realizes that he cannot move. Qian explains that this is a technique, a way to immobilize an aggressor. He says Shen should learn something like this so he can protect himself better. He asks if he wants to learn it. Shen replies that it is incredible and says he wants to learn. Then, Qian pulls out a gun, points it at his own head, and fires. Afterward, he says that is also a technique, a secret art of the organization. This technique can block all kinds of projectiles, even sniper shots. Ye replies that there is no unbreakable defense in the martial world, only attacks too fast to counter. Qian asks if that line is good and where he read it. The protagonist answers that he invented it himself. Qian says he truly has natural talent. Then he finally makes the invitation. He wants Shen to join the Hidden Dragon Project. He explains that the Hidden Dragon Project is a program created by the organization to train rising talents. He intends to recommend Shen to 3 of the best martial schools in the world. Before that, however, he will need to pass an extremely rigorous admission exam. It is not the standard high school exam, but one created by the 3 schools themselves. Ordinary people almost never have the chance to take it, because it is normally monopolized by the children of noble families. Shen asks what noble families are. Qian explains that they are families that possess ancient knowledge, artifacts, and bloodline pacts inherited from divine beings of ancient times. These ancestral families possess more martial legacies than even the group itself. They also control vast lands, populations, and wealth. These supreme families live separated from ordinary people by a nearly insurmountable abyss. Shen begins to wonder if that means grandfather Shen belongs to one of those families. Qian continues explaining that the Hidden Dragon Project was created precisely to find hidden talents among ordinary people. They will help Shen enter the most prestigious academies. Even if he fails the exam, they will still guarantee him a place in a high-level school. If he manages to enter any of the 3 great schools, the organization will provide full support, offering resources and guidance to develop his talents. When he reaches the peak, he will return to the organization to work with them, naturally receiving the best possible compensation. Ye then realizes that he finally understands. This is a world where supreme strength reigns. He accepts the invitation. At the same time, he thinks about his family. They once belonged to a noble family, but for some reason his father was banished by his own father. Now that they live as ordinary people, whenever an anomaly occurs, the police do not even dare to help them. His parents had to beg and borrow just to obtain a single doctor, something that for his grandfather's noble family would have meant nothing. Today he injured someone, yet he will not suffer serious consequences because he has already become strong enough to stand above the rules that normally apply to people like him. Qian then says that if he is ready, he should sign the document and provide his fingerprint. Shen thinks he now understands why all the teachers repeat so often that humanity can only survive by relying on the strong. That is how civilization continues to exist. Qian adds that he may think more carefully before deciding. In fact, other organizations will probably contact him soon. Shen replies that Qian was the first to approach him and also helped him out of a difficult situation. For that reason, he is willing to join the organization. Qian says he is a decisive young man and that he knew there was something special about him. Since he is still a minor, they will also need a guardian's signature. Ye replies that it is not a problem because his parents should be at home. Qian says that is excellent and that they must hurry. If another organization arrives before them, everything will be lost. He says he will return as soon as he finishes. Qian then moves quickly, disappearing in the blink of an eye, leaving the protagonist surprised by how powerful he is. The principal asks how the conversation went. Shen replies that he already signed and that Qian is on his way to speak with his parents about the contract. The principal becomes very excited and says that is fantastic, that the whole school will be talked about across the city. Ye's phone rings. It is an unknown number. When he answers, it is Luo. He says he discovered some information about Shen's situation and would like him to come to the police station. At the station, the sergeant asks him to look at something. The protagonist has felt a strange sensation ever since he entered the building, an uneasiness that is difficult to explain. Luo shows him a photo and says it was taken by accident. Someone handed the image to him because of the recent rumors about the hospital. The photo is from the day of the incident and shows a suspicious man on the roof across from the hospital. He asks if Shen knows that man. Shen zooms in on the image and says he has never seen that person before. The sergeant explains that according to forensic experts, the man appeared to be trying to activate something. He asks if Shen was carrying anything unusual that day. Ye thinks that man was probably the one who activated the cursed statue of the evil Ghost King. However, the sergeant clearly has not realized that yet, and since the statue has already turned to dust, all the clues have disappeared. He cannot mention the statue, so he replies that he was not carrying anything unusual. He also thinks that everyone died because of the statue's curse, yet he survived. Telling anyone that would only cause trouble. The sergeant finds the answer strange and asks if he felt anything unusual that day, such as shortness of breath, dizziness, or loss of control of his body. The protagonist realizes that the questions seem to indicate the sergeant already knows something. At the same time, the uneasy feeling inside the station keeps growing, as if something is hidden there, waiting for the right moment to act. Suddenly, Shen remembers something and comments that his backpack was open, even though he was sure he had closed it before leaving school. Luo asks whether he checked the backpack. Shen replies that he did not and that he should have checked earlier. At the same time, he notices a slight movement in the sergeant's hand as if he were about to do something. Shen decides to redistribute all his status points to agility. No matter what happens, he must be ready to run at any moment. He wonders whether he could run faster than the sergeant, but imagines that the sergeant's attributes must be on a completely different level from his. Ye lifts his foot slightly and thinks he cannot make a mistake. He prepares to open a passage beneath his feet just in case. If something goes wrong, he only needs to kick the table and fall directly through the door. At that moment, the sergeant's phone rings. The protagonist thinks he almost triggered his escape by accident, but this might be his chance to get away. He decides to leave while the sergeant answers the call. The sergeant tells him to stay where he is. On the other end of the line, a voice says that his time has come. Energy begins to rise. Shen becomes confused and wonders what is happening, whether that is an eliminator. Soon he realizes that the target is not him, but the sergeant himself. He also wonders whether that is the technique Jian mentioned earlier. Luo asks if the enemy is right outside the station. The sergeant then moves quickly and shatters the window glass. The alarm sounds. Intruder detected. An invader has entered the police station. All non-combat personnel must seek shelter immediately. The protagonist looks outside and sees something strange, asking whether that is the ocean and how it is possible since they should be in the city. The man above is the one who made the call, but he's not the same man with glasses from the photo. The invader says that the sergeant eliminated many members of the church and that he came to settle the score. Luo replies that he is busy at the moment and that they can talk later. The invader says that his life is the only explanation needed. Shen goes back inside the station and realizes the two of them have disappeared. He fears the sergeant has been trapped in that strange ocean. The strange feeling returns once again. He begins to wonder what is happening to him and whether that office is haunted. He says that whoever is there should appear now. Energy begins to flow from his eyes. The system sends a notification. The necromantic ability Dark Whispers has been activated. The question compels any soul bound to a body in that place to return an answer. If they refuse, they will never find peace. Ye realizes something and says Dark Whispers works on souls bound to a body. That means there is a body inside the sergeant's office. Then a voice responds, giving thanks. The protagonist, frightened, asks who is there. The voice replies that it never imagined it would return to its own body using that old rotting shell just to answer questions. Shen realizes the voice is coming from the closet and thinks the body must be inside. That voice sounds familiar. It cannot be. The voice says a hunter was finished by his own prey and asks whether afterward the killer disguised himself to take his place. Shen opens the closet and finds Luo there, with his hands tied and already dead. The voice says that it is indeed him. Ye asks what happened. Luo replies that the man with the dark glasses from the photo eliminated him. That man was an eliminator. He explains that he was a special operations soldier with balanced strength and agility. To fight at his best, he needed top-level equipment, but one moment of carelessness was enough for him to be defeated. At the critical moment, his weapon failed, and after killing him, the enemy assumed his identity to lure Shen to the station. The protagonist asks what his objective was. Luo replies that he does not know exactly, but the imposter definitely wanted answers. Shen thinks that makes sense. The curse of the evil Ghost King statue had never failed before, so the enemy must have become curious about how he survived. Fortunately, that lunatic attacked the police station, which probably disrupted the Eliminator's plans. Shen says the imposter was taken away by a man wearing colorful pajamas who seemed to use some kind of sorcery. Luo asks what kind of sorcery. Ye explains that the area outside the station turned into an ocean for a few moments and then returned to normal, but the imposter and the attacker did not return with it. The sergeant says the prey tried to disguise itself as the hunter, but it did not know that the hunter also had bigger problems waiting. That was not sorcery, it was an anomaly. When another world connects with ours, enveloping, infecting, or consuming an area, or even taking people away, it is called an anomaly. There are even worse cases known as calamities. Shen asks what a calamity is. Luo explains that it is when powerful monsters from other worlds suddenly appear and cause massive destruction. He asks if Shen has ever heard of the city of Jiang. Shen replies yes and says people said an earthquake destroyed the entire city. The sergeant says that was only the official version. In reality, it was a classic case of calamity. More than 13 million people lived there and not a single one survived. Ye says that is horrible. Luo replies that there is no time to mourn. That anomaly was temporary and the Eliminator may return at any moment. The protagonist asks whether that means he is still in danger. The sergeant says yes and tells him to go to the armory on the 3rd floor. Outside, there is a silver panel on the wall where he must enter a code. After hearing the code, Shen comments that it is enormous. Luo explains that there is a special pen outside the armory. He must write the code on the wall with it. When he reports the truth, he will receive protection. Time is running out, and that is his only chance to stay safe. The system then notifies him that the other party has said everything he could. The soul has departed. Shen looks at the completely lifeless body and finally understands. No one wanted to get involved in his case because things like this happen all the time. In this world, those who are not strong enough are crushed. He wonders whether he should expose the Eliminator's identity, but concludes it would not help. The enemy may have accomplices within the station itself. With the abilities he displayed, he could eliminate Shen instantly. The only option is to follow Luo's instructions and secure his safety on the 3rd floor. Shen rests his head against the closet and thinks he may never be able to avenge the sergeant with his current strength. Even so, he makes a vow. No matter what happens, he will avenge Luo and ensure he rests in peace. Suddenly, a phone rings announcing that an anomaly has occurred and that everyone must gather on the ground floor for inspection. Soon after, the door opens. A police officer says there was an attack and that everyone must go immediately to the central cyber system for a scan. They must go downstairs and speak quickly with Sergeant Luo and with Shen. The officer tries to reassure him, saying he knows he is scared, but that the target of that attack was Sergeant Luo. Therefore, he is safe. In addition, everyone there are police officers and they will take good care of him. Then the officer looks at the closet and notices something strange. He says the body was moved and asks whether the student did it. He then moves quickly around the office, searching everywhere. He jumps onto the desk and says he searched the entire room but found no one. Confused, he asks whether the student ran away. The Eliminator comments that they eliminated so many people just to boast in front of a 15-year-old boy and still managed to ruin everything. The officer replies that unlike them, he is not so useless. Over the radio, he informs all units that Ye should be considered a strong suspect in the incident and orders an alert to be issued throughout the entire city. Soon after, the system announces that the environmental scan of the central cyber system has been completed and that everyone must gather in the plaza in front of the hall for inspection. At that moment, the door appears. The protagonist opens it and checks whether they have already left. He concludes he was right. The Eliminator really had accomplices. He thinks he could hide in the Kingdom of Nightmares until everything is safe, but that would mean losing the chance to make those Eliminators pay for what they did. He needs to reach the 3rd floor and report everything. Shen jumps through the window, sees the empty corridor, and decides to act quickly. He must enter the code on the wall. Suddenly, a voice appears saying he was sure he heard something up there. It is the officer asking what he is doing there. Ye begins writing the code on the wall and replies that the final exams are coming. So the teacher gave him some extra math problems and he needs to study. While writing, he thinks the code is absurdly long. The officer realizes what he is doing and thinks that device is the emergency activation system that connects directly to the world government headquarters. He wonders how a student obtained that code. The officer tries to attack him and demands to know who gave it to him. He cannot allow him to continue. Shen protects himself using the door. The officer charges again and asks what kind of ability that is. The protagonist thinks it is fortunate that the door adapts to the environment. If it were just a normal door, he would already have been eliminated. The officer keeps advancing with the intention of killing him, but the door disappears. Seizing the opportunity, the officer rushes toward him. However, the door reappears instantly and he crashes into it violently, injuring himself. Furious, the officer asks how that door can remain standing on the ground. Shen thinks he has finally finished entering the code. A voice then appears. Password verified. This is Kunlun, the highest level artificial intelligence of the world government. Emergency evaluation initiated. The area is being scanned. Luo's body has been located. The false identity of Captain Wang of the Major Crimes Unit has been confirmed. The nearest high-rank practitioner is being dispatched. District Manager Qian has been mobilized. Given the seriousness of the situation, immediate execution has been authorized. Shen is surprised to hear Qian's name. The voice continues announcing that in 30 seconds, the imposter posing as Wang will be executed and begins the countdown. The officer shouts that he is calling reinforcements and says they are dreaming if they think that will work. 30 seconds are more than enough to eliminate Shen and disappear. Ye runs toward the door, but the officer grabs his arm and asks if he really thinks he will let him escape. Just as the strike is about to land, something happens. Qian appears and hits the officer with a devastating attack, destroying him with a brutal impact. Qian then says there is no unbreakable defense in the martial world, only attacks too fast to counter. A voice asks if he really thought they would perform a real countdown. Qian asks Shen if that looked cool. Shen replies that it was incredible and thanks him for saving him. Later, in the National Security Office, Qian says he can handle everything else, but Shen must be honest about how he obtained the access code. Ye explains that Sergeant Luo gave him the code earlier, saying he was being hunted and that he should use it if something happened. Qian says he understands. It seems the sergeant already knew that both the Silent Church and that Eliminator were after him. The man who caused the previous anomaly belongs to that organization. They are a group of dangerous fanatics. Luo probably crossed paths with them during some case. The protagonist sighs and says, "The death of Sergeant Luo is truly a pity." Qian agrees and says he also thinks it is a great loss. He did not know him long, but he could feel the sense of justice in him. Perhaps that very righteousness led him to his death. Qian adds that Shen was lucky. The Eliminator impersonating Luo would have succeeded in killing him, but fate interfered. Kunlun has already traced the Eliminator who was after him. He belongs to the Eliminators League. They accept contracts only online, so they still do not know who hired the assassin. Shen comments that someone capable of killing the sergeant must be extremely skilled, which means the contract price must have been high. That suggests whoever hired him probably has a lot of money. Qian says he is a clever boy, but the real question is why someone would spend so much to eliminate a simple high school student like him. They are still investigating that. Ye then asks about the Kunlun system that appeared when he used the code. He wants to know why the sergeant did not call for reinforcements earlier if that system could have been used to ask for help. Qian replies that Kunlun is the central AI of the world government. It was the one that assigned him the rescue mission. Normally the AI does not handle small incidents like that. It only intervenes when someone uses one of the special access codes. As for why the sergeant did not use that resource earlier, it was because he did not know his weapon had been compromised. An employee then explains that it was Luo's steel exoskeleton. His primary weapon had been sabotaged by a virus planted in the system, rendering it useless. However, the moment the sergeant died, the system began functioning again. That means someone did it intentionally, someone close to him. Kunlun has already assigned an investigation mission, and they will discover the truth. The protagonist thinks he now understands why the sergeant said his weapon was defective. Such a strong and honorable officer abandoned his position to pursue the truth to the very end. Even after dying, he still tried to help him. Yet he lost his life without even being able to use his own weapon when he needed it most. Qian says that now that Shen is part of the group, he will give him the first lesson. He must remember it well. No matter what happens, he must always be wary of people with ill intentions. People like that are more frightening than monsters. Shen replies that he will remember. Qian then tells him to come with him because he arranged to meet his parents. Ye asks about the two who were trapped in the anomaly. Qian replies that specialists will handle it. That entire area will soon be isolated, so they need to leave. The protagonist asks why Qian will not stay to deal with the situation at the station, since he seems strong enough to face those two. Qian replies that he is being naive. No one knows what someone might bring back after passing through an anomaly. He recounts that once a man came out apparently normal from an anomaly caused by the church. In the end, they discovered it was only an empty human skin. Inside it was a creature no one had ever seen before. That thing destroyed half the city before they discovered its weakness. That is why Qian prefers dealing with eliminators rather than facing the church and anomalies. Most people think the same way. Even so, Shen does not need to worry. Those two will face something far worse than the man stuck to the wall. Suddenly, Qian realizes something, takes out his phone, and asks someone to run a background check. The name he mentions is Mengyu. He wants to know what her relationship with Luo was. However, when he hears the answer from the other side of the line, his expression changes. Ye wonders who Mengyu is and thinks she probably had some kind of connection with the sergeant. Somewhere else, Shen's parents say there is something important he needs to know. Before discussing the contract with Qian, he must make a decision. Qian agrees and says he will step outside to smoke while they talk. The mother then says they will no longer hide the truth. Shen comes from a prestigious family. His father originally belonged to a branch of the famous Sanjin clan. Shen thinks that confirms his suspicions. He remembers reading in a history book that the Sanjin clan was one of the few families that inherited divine powers and artifacts. The mother explains that his father was a true prodigy, but suffered a chi deviation while training an ancient technique and lost all his strength. Discouraged, he came to the city, and it was there that he met Shen's mother. Later, the grandfather tried to arrange a political marriage for his father, but he refused and chose to marry for love. That enraged the grandfather, who completely expelled him from the family. After that, they had Shen and began living a simple but happy life. Shen asks whether they are telling that story just to show off their romance. His father replies that is not the reason. They are telling it because the talent Shen has shown is far beyond ordinary. If he returns to the grandfather now and acknowledges his bloodline, the old man will certainly accept him. He could become a disciple of the clan and gain access to extraordinary resources and privileges. The heritage of a prestigious family is something most people can only dream of possessing. However, if he joins the human martial arts group, he will lose that opportunity forever. The choice is his. Whatever decision he makes, they will support him. Shen then says he has already decided. He will join the human martial arts group. His mother asks if he is sure. If they speak to the grandfather, he could live a life filled with wealth and comfort. Shen says he does not want to go back. He does not want his parents to have to beg again because of him. If his father managed to move forward on his own, then he can do the same. He believes in himself. His parents say it is his life and they respect his decision. He has grown up. Shen thinks that over the years they almost never returned to the grandfather's house. Whenever they did, they were received coldly. Neither the grandfather nor the rest of the family treated them well. The only good memories he has of that place are from childhood, when he played with other children of the family. In his past life, he faced constant loneliness and hardship. Only now does he truly understand the meaning of a family's love. Qian says they are welcome to the human martial arts group. The protagonist thinks that a cold family like the Shen clan is something best left in the past. Qian continues by saying that in a few days he will participate in the admission exams for the 3 most prestigious schools in the world. Until then, he would like Shen to remain at the group's facilities preparing himself. He asks the parents whether that is acceptable. The mother replies that it is wonderful. Those are the best schools in the world, so their son should not pressure himself too much. He just needs to do his best, as he always has. Shen then says they can consider him officially part of the team from that moment onward. Meanwhile, in a corridor, Zhao sits scrolling through her phone. She writes a post saying that a cruel case of bullying ruined a classmate's future. The top student in the class, after failing an exam, supposedly became mentally unstable and took revenge on society by injuring his classmates. According to her, the police had to intervene and there will certainly be consequences. Zhao looks at the post and thinks it is perfect. Her video is spreading quickly and everyone is talking about what happened with Sun and the others. In her view, it was completely worth it to go to the hospital just to take a photo of her injured face. She thinks Ye will reap what he has sown, while she will continue being seen as the perfect goddess she has always been. In her mind, Shen should not blame her. This is simply his destiny. From now on, he will not be able to enter any school, learn martial techniques, gain access to weapons, armor, elixirs, or enhancement potions, and certainly not obtain any special inheritance. He will end up like Sun and the others, a complete failure. Meanwhile, she will become someone they will never be able to reach. Suddenly, a notification appears on her phone. The post has been flagged for spreading misinformation and removed. It demands that everyone stop spreading rumors at once. Otherwise, both the platform and the human martial arts group will take legal action against those responsible. Zhao's eyes widen when she sees that the post has been flagged for spreading misinformation. She asks if that is really possible, remembering that there is clear evidence that Shen acted in self-defense. Zhao says she cannot believe it and questions again why this information is not being released, what the human martial arts group has to do with the case, what the school is saying, and what their official position is. Soon after, another piece of news appears. Shen has signed a contract with the human martial arts group, and the 5 best schools in the province have offered him guaranteed admission. When Yibing sees this, she slumps down in discouragement and thinks about how close she had been to success. She wonders how Shen managed to enter the human martial arts group and how he was able to achieve all of this. Meanwhile, at the human martial arts group, Qian informs them that the police have just sent the report and that the case is closed. A major battle took place, many people died, and one of them was captured alive. The protagonist asks if the situation was really that serious. Qian replies that he simply eliminated that individual and because of that earned 5 merit points. Shen asks what merit points are. Qian explains that they function as an internal currency used to purchase special items such as techniques, materials, information, and souls. It was precisely information that made that entire operation possible. But since Shen still does not hold an official position, he will not receive merit points. At that moment, Ye receives a notification on his phone informing him that, due to his significant contributions in that battle, the government has decided to grant him a special reward. Since he is still underage, a more appropriate form of compensation has been chosen. The package has already been sent and must be collected in the main lobby of the Human Martial Arts Group building. The protagonist asks if he really received a reward and what it might be. On the 105th floor, Qian comments that in high school they only teach the basics, and that true martial arts techniques are only learned in higher education. So he believes the reward must be a good combat technique. Shen says he really needs some offensive moves because he has already been targeted several times, and if it had not been for pure luck. Qian says he knows, and that for now, Shen should avoid going out, because he will personally investigate those assassination attempts immediately, An employee reports that the online rumors have already been resolved, and Jian says that is good, adding that from now on, Shen is officially part of the group. This month's funds have already been transferred to his account, and he should spend them wisely. The butler asks the student to follow him so he can show him his room. Qian tells him to feel at home because he still has work to do and cannot accompany him, but Shen can call him if he needs anything. Shortly afterward, a girl approaches, introduces herself, and congratulates him on joining the human martial arts group. She says he is amazing and that, since she is younger, she will call him Big Brother. She says she wanted to thank him for all the support and admiration during this time and hopes he studies hard, trains hard, and becomes a very important figure. The world is vast and worth fighting for together. She says she believes in him and comments that she managed to get VIP tickets for her next show and would really like to see him there. Later, Ye watches a video of her playing on the television in his room, and the protagonist realizes that she is actually his favorite celebrity. He looks around and notices that everything in that room was prepared exactly according to his tastes. The flowers, the paintings, the books, the snacks, the drinks, the sports equipment, and even the presence of the celebrity. Shen steps outside and comments that for a mere recruit, the group really went to great lengths and that this is the prestige that comes with power. Ye looks at the 105th floor and thinks that anyone would want to be up there, above the clouds, because who would not want to ride the wind, climb higher and higher, and witness breathtaking landscapes? He then says that at midnight, that night, he will enter the nightmare realm once again, because he needs to obtain another title, this time a decent one. He needs to become stronger and cannot afford to fail the admission exams that will take place in 2 days. When midnight arrives, the protagonist enters the nightmare realm and finds the skeleton completely shattered. He asks what the hell happened there and says he cannot just enter recklessly or he will ruin his chances in the title evaluation. The skeleton begs him to save him, saying he is losing his life. Shen asks what happened to him and admits he does not know how to heal him. The skeleton replies that it all started with that tonic from the party last week, asks if there is any left, and desperately begs for a little more. Yes says he has none. The skeleton then says that this is the end for him. The protagonist thinks that the guy is a good business partner and that he should at least try to save him. He tells the skeleton to hold on and wait a bit while he thinks of a solution. And so the skeleton waits and keeps waiting. 2 hours pass. Finally, Shen opens the door and says he is back, but immediately complains that the door is too small and that he cannot get through with that thing. The skeleton says he finally arrived and asks why it took so long. Shen replies that he did everything he could for him. He bought a giant aquarium and filled it to the brim with liquid calcium gluconate, calcium, magnesium, and zinc, spending every last coin he had. He says that if the skeleton can soak in it, he will be as good as new, and asks if he has any idea how to get it inside. The skeleton asks what he expects him to do. Suddenly, the pressure in the area rises, and Ye, confused, asks what is happening. The skeleton says they are invading humans and elves. That place is actually a secret passage. Outside lies the fortress of the undead, and humans and elves are launching a full-force attack. The battle is not over yet, but he is too weak to fight. He tells Shen to grab that spatial ring and put it on immediately because he needs to hide. An energy begins to move and the skeleton is hidden inside the ring. At that moment, an explosion occurs on the inside, but the protagonist manages to close the door in time and it disappears. Shen says that was close because he would have turned to dust if he had been caught in that explosion, and asks if he is hiding inside the ring now. The skeleton says yes. Spatial rings cannot store living creatures, but fortunately he himself is undead. Ye thinks he knew that that bony guy had some hidden treasure, and that he would not give it up easily. The skeleton tells him to raise his hand toward the aquarium and absorb it while he jumps inside, so he can soak in that liquid, whatever it is. The protagonist comments that he is clearly not an ordinary skeleton. Ever since the elf village, he had been suspicious of his identity. After all, who is escorted by 3 of his own kind to eliminate an enemy leader? He says he does not care and will not start worrying about it now, but reminds him that he saved him today. The skeleton asks how he wants to be rewarded. Shen says he is going to his world today and needs full cooperation. The skeleton asks if he did not see the insane battle outside and what if he loses his life going back there. Then he says to forget it, that he respected his privacy and Shen should respect his. But he needs to hear one thing. All his powerful treasures are already gone. The ones he used are finished, and the help he can offer is limited. Ye asks if he is a battlefield scavenger. The skeleton says he is responsible for looting the battlefield, but he never expected to find anything truly good because truly powerful items are taken immediately by the enemy when their owners fall. The protagonist thinks that the secret passage outside leads directly to the undead fortress. If he disguises himself as a soldier and wanders around the battlefield before returning, he should be able to obtain a new title. So he asks if he has any undead soldier equipment. preferably something that can mask his human aura. The skeleton summons several items. Shen looks at them and asks what all that junk is, if he is some kind of scrap collector. The skeleton replies that those torn pieces of armor are cruel reminders of the horrors of war, but if he searches carefully, he should find something useful. Ye feels relieved and says he almost managed to assemble a full set. That horse token is not bad because it can summon a skeletal warhorse. The skeleton says it is perfect and that he already smells like someone ready for finalization. That centurion mask is exactly what he needs. The protagonist asks what is special about it. The skeleton replies that it is imbued with a powerful aura of finalization. With that and the equipment, no other undead will notice the disguise. Now he looks like a true undead warrior. If he plays his cards right, he might even get a skeletal warhorse with that token. Riding a skeletal warhorse and passing as one of them, if the situation becomes dangerous, he just has to run. At the very least, he might earn a title like Phantom Knight or something similar. Shen says he is going. The skeleton warns him not to dare lose his life because if he gets finalized, they will find the ring on him and then he himself will have problems later. Ye is about to enter the door and says he will try his best not to lose his life. When the protagonist enters, he realizes the place is completely destroyed. He picked up a dagger in the lands of the elves and intends to use it to have a bit more protection this time. As Shen walks among the rocks, several weapons are pointed at him. The soldiers say there is a lost undead there, and that they should eliminate him. Ye wonders about the humans because that should be undead territory. Did they lose? He then shouts for them not to attack, saying he is on the same side, that he is human, and removes the mask to prove it. The soldier raises his sword and asks if he is a traitor fighting for the undead, saying he deserves to lose his life for that. Shen blocks the attack with the dagger. The soldier is surprised and asks if that dagger is Nightshade. The system notifies Human Scout Dagger, White Trace Level, Basic Sharpness. A dagger designed for eliminators, blessed by the silent sanctity of the human race. Only human scouts whose souls remain pure can wield it. Those who carry it are considered trustworthy by humanity and authorized to transmit information. The soldier says that only a human with a pure soul can wield Nightshade and concludes that he is definitely on the same side. He dismisses the soldiers and orders them to return to hunting the lost undead. The leader makes a gesture asking if he needs help. The protagonist smiles and thinks that on Earth that sign language means "I love you." He wonders if that is a declaration of love at first sight. Everyone in the nightmare realm seems very direct. He notices the leader staring at the mask and imagines that the gesture must have some hidden meaning, wondering if the mask symbolizes something. He thinks that that bonehead gave him a special item without explaining anything. Either way, he decides to roll with it. Ye says that as they can see, he is in a complicated situation, and that if they can help, he will not refuse. The leader says he understands and states that there is a golden combat kit for him. Ye thinks it really worked and asks for his name, saying he will repay the help one day. The leader replies that his name is Roman. The knights then shout to clear the way for the Baron. The Lord pulls the reins of his horse and says he has been there long enough, asking if he is delaying the battle on purpose. Roman says no and explains that he found a scout outside the ruins of the secret passage. The Lord asks about the secret passage and the scout and orders him to approach. Then he commands that the scout be arrested immediately because he suspects he is an undead spy. Roman says he is carrying a Nightshade dagger, but the Lord interrupts and orders him to be silent. He says he knows that the bearer of Nightshade has a pure soul, but he still needs to know what his mission is. The protagonist asks who he is and what gives him the right to question his mission. The man replies that he is Baron Warren of South Eagle Castle. He says he is just a little scout and asks if he still dares to ask his name. He declares that he will strip him, whip him 20 times, and extract all his little secrets. Shen says he will remember that name. The Baron asks if a mere scout dares to threaten him and says he is asking to lose his life. When everyone rushes to attack him, Ye disappears. The knights ask where he went. The Baron says it is strange because he simply vanished. Roman comments that he heard rumors that some nameless eliminators joined this battle. They are masters at hiding in the shadows, and he was very bold to announce his own name like that. The Baron thinks about elite eliminators trained for assassination missions and imagines that in a chaotic battlefield like that, if he tried to eliminate him in the middle of the confusion, so he decides it is better to leave. The protagonist appears in his room and says that idiot Baron Warren tried to catch him like that, but he will not forget it. Good thing he placed a door on the ground beforehand. It was close. He asks if the skeleton did not see that guy making hand signals. The skeleton tells him not to blame him and asks how he would know all those complicated tricks of the human army. Besides, he returned safe and sound. New notifications appear. The system informs that this time he obtained the title One of Himself, Green Quality, Excellent. Evaluation. As an ordinary human, the highest level title he could normally achieve would be White. However, in a situation where he was completely outmatched, He used the environment and the actions of others to overcome adversity and escape unharmed. This adaptability is the main reason for granting him this exceptional title. The system also informs that this is the second time he has received this exceptional title. Special event activated. If the next special honorary title Common Human is 3 consecutive exceptional titles, one of himself, that title will resonate with powerful forces and grant a hidden ability. To obtain this hidden ability, he must proceed carefully. Shen asks if 3 identical titles can activate a hidden ability, and concludes that if the next title is also one of himself, the power will be activated. However, if it is any other title, he will lose that opportunity. He wonders how he will manage to obtain another green quality, one of himself title, and concludes from the description that he needs to be in a desperate situation, facing overwhelming odds, and use intelligence and the environment to escape. Thinking about the 2 times he obtained one of himself, both in the elf village and on the undead battlefield, he was deep inside enemy territory in a life-or-death crisis. Even so, in the end, he managed to dissolve their hostility and even gain their willingness to help him, so that is the key. But the standard is too high, like walking on a tightrope, and he only has 1 attempt. There is no way he will throw himself into that recklessly. If it is too risky, he will give up on that hidden ability. His own life is definitely far more important. At that moment, a sound plays. A voice informs him that he has a visitor. It says the visitor identified herself as a member of the Luo family, that her identity has already been verified by the group, and asks if he wishes to receive her. The protagonist thinks about the sergeant's family. The sergeant lost his life investigating his case and even saved him after being finalized. There is no way he can refuse someone from his family. So he replies that he wants to see her, and the voice informs him that the meeting has been scheduled in the room on the 5th floor. On the 5th floor, a girl is already waiting. Shen asks if she's looking for him. Ye's eyes widen the instant he recognizes who she is. She is a great swordswoman. The girl introduces herself as Mengyu, younger sister of Luo Faichuan, and says she came to ask a few questions. The protagonist thinks about titles. He has met many people, but even manager Qian does not have a title. None of those humans, undead, or elves in the Nightmare Realm had titles either. Only the elf high priestess had a long list of them. This girl is only the second person he has seen with a title. So she was the one who made the manager turn pale just by hearing her name. Mengyu says her brother tracked down his eliminator, the Shadow Man. During the fight, his weapon malfunctioned, which resulted in his finalization. Later, she discovered who sabotaged the weapon, 2 colleagues driven by jealousy of his achievements, and she already eliminated all of them. Hearing this, Ye's eyes widen immediately, and he asks about the information, saying that the eliminator had been captured alive yesterday. He asks if that means she also eliminated the other 2 who sabotaged the weapon. Mengyu says that is correct. She ended the lives of all of them. The protagonist thinks that she talks about it so naturally. So this is what it means to be a great swordswoman. Mengyu continues and says her brother was a man of limited talent. She guided him into a good school, secured a good job for him after graduation, and arranged a good wife to continue the Luo family line. Everything was following the plan. She only wanted him to live a safe and protected life. Shen thinks he always considered the sergeant a prodigy and does not understand why she insists on saying he was a man of limited talent. Mengyu says that, however, her brother ended up betrayed, his body tied up and hidden inside a closet, and asks why he remained silent. She asks if he is suggesting that she should allow others to humiliate her brother without seeking revenge. Ye replies that he is not, that he was just thinking, and asks if she will not have problems for eliminating those men. Mengyu says she understands his doubt. He carries the surname Shen, but he has never lived among noble families, so he would not understand. No matter how ordinary her brother was, he was still a member of a noble family. Losing his life in such a humiliating way at the hands of an eliminator was unacceptable. She, representing the family, restored their honor, and no one will dare question her actions. Moreover, the eliminator's mother had the surname Zhao, and he had adopted her name. She interrogated the eliminator, but he had no idea who hired him, and did not know he had eliminated a member of the Luo family. Now that everyone has been finalized, the trail has gone cold. That is why she came there. She wants to know if he has any idea who wants him dead or if he suspects anyone. She says even a vague guess would be useful and asks him to name a few people because she will handle the rest herself. The protagonist says that honestly he has no idea who is behind it, but she already avenged Sergeant Luo by eliminating those responsible. Mengyu says that is not enough. They still need to find the person who hired the eliminator. That eliminator killed her brother, so she needs to eliminate both the assassin and the person behind everything. Only then will her brother rest in peace. Suddenly the sky is split in half and Shen is shocked, thinking she just did that, yet he did not even see the moment when Mengyu drew her sword. She asks him to think carefully and asks if he noticed anything strange, any detail or unusual event. Then she asks if, as a member of a noble family, he has ever had any conflict with other families or might have made enemies without realizing it, also telling him not to be intimidated by their power or influence. If he needs help, he can come to her anytime. Ye says his family does not get along with the Sanjin clan, but they rarely have contact. When he visited the place, he only spent some time with children his own age and did not offend anyone. Then he remembers something. The first time he was attacked, he heard terrified screams in the hospital and comments that there might have been witnesses. Meng Yu says she will investigate that immediately and promises to inform him as soon as she finds something. Then she gives him her contact information, thanks him, and says she must leave. The protagonist simply asks her to be careful. Soon after, Qian appears behind him and comments that that strike was terrifying. He also mentions that when Meng Yu arrived, she specifically asked if he had any intention of hurting him. Shen admits he was worried because he feared she might blame him for Luo's death, but it seems everything is fine. After all, she is the most talented member of the current generation of the Luo family, and even among other noble families, she is considered exceptional. The protagonist asks if she is still in school or if she has already started working. Qian replies that she will take the high school entrance exams this year and that she is in the same grade as him. Qian tells him not to feel discouraged because noble families often possess secret inheritances and begin training their children from a very early age, so it is normal for them to be much stronger than others of the same age. If he had grown up within the clan, he would probably be just as strong as her. Shen replies that, in fact, he feels more relieved than anything else. She is on his side, and if she discovers who is behind all of this, it will be a great help. Then he says he will return to his room and sleep a little. Qian agrees and tells him to go ahead, adding that tomorrow he will call some tutors to guide him on what to watch out for in the exams. Back in his room, Ye is still indignant and comments that, as expected from someone from a noble family, Meng Yu is incredibly strong. Noble families stand at the top of human civilization in that world. Then he pauses to think, what if someone from there wants him dead? If that is the case, they could simply spend money freely to hire eliminators from the league and his life could easily end. Shen concludes that he needs to learn some offensive skills as soon as possible. He cannot rely on a great swordswoman to protect him all the time. In the end, he himself is his best bet. Then he asks if there are still any nightmare crystals left, the ones that grant abilities, and asks the skeleton if he still has some of those crystals. The skeleton replies that everything he possesses are undead abilities, and that, since Shen is not undead and does not have a soul flame, he would not be able to use them. The protagonist then asks how he managed to obtain that Moonlight Deerwalk crystal last time, and the skeleton replies that he found it purely by luck. Shen wonders if he will really have to wait until higher education to learn a decent offensive move, but quickly concludes he does not have that kind of time. Besides the eliminators after him, the exams are approaching, and those noble family kids will not be easy opponents. He comments that he has not even checked the combat kit Roman gave him yet. Ye begins to search, but finds only a first aid kit and asks if there is anything useful there. Then he wonders if there might be a nightmare crystal inside and hopes it is a good ability. Among the items, there is also a message saying that the Shadow Hand Brotherhood has set up an information drop point at the main camp, and that if he finds a tent marked with 3 vertical daggers, he can submit his reports there, because the Shadow Hand is waiting. The protagonist asks if there is no ability there, and the skeleton replies that it seems that human Roman mistook him for a member of the Shadow Hand. Shen thinks for a moment and concludes that he already obtained a title today and will not get another one even if he returns to the Nightmare World, which makes this a perfect opportunity to explore. So he asks the skeleton if he found that Centurion mask he left behind and whether they can still go back there. The skeleton says it should be somewhere near the secret passage, although he does not remember exactly where, and asks why he wants to know. Ye explains that the human army captured the undead outpost outside the passage and that he plans to dress like a soldier to return to the Nightmare World, then asks if there is any human equipment available. Ye says that now he looks like a soldier from the borderlands of the kingdom and asks if he sees the wolf emblem on the shield, explaining that it is their symbol. Since the undead eliminated the humans of the kingdom, no one will question a survivor. The protagonist asks about a crystal and the skeleton replies that it is a distress letter from the kingdom's lord that also works as a token. He should carry it with him because it will be useful when he leaves. Shen says that is new and asks why this sudden concern for his well-being. The skeleton replies that he saved him the previous night and he needs to repay the favor. Ye tells him to tell the truth or he will drain all the calcium supplement. The skeleton then admits that he needs to help him gain some prestige in the Nightmare World so that he can purchase high-level materials to heal his wounds. At night, in another place, several dead and wounded soldiers are scattered around. One of them calls for help and tells his brother to hold on, because the base camp is just ahead, and he will be treated quickly. Meanwhile, the protagonist is hiding behind a rock observing the scene. He thinks there are still some soldiers cleaning the battlefield, so he cannot act recklessly. If he encounters that squad from before and they recognize him, he is finished. There are many bodies there, so he decides to try gathering some information. He finds a giant undead, hides behind it, and orders it to wake up, saying he has a few questions. He asks if it knows anything about that mask, but the undead says it does not. Ye runs off and tells it to rest in peace. The protagonist starts asking several undead about the mask, but no one knows anything. After a while, Shen sits on the ground behind a rock and wonders how he is supposed to find a needle in a haystack. Suddenly, Ye notices something. A werewolf. He comments that werewolves have an incredible sense of smell and might be able to help. So he asks if he has seen or smelled anything like that mask. The werewolf says he has seen the mask before. It belongs to a centurion who now has only one arm. Then he remembers that he is a wolf, not a dog. The protagonist says he can go back now. Shen then notices an arm on the ground and wonders if the Whisper of Darkness will work. He asks if anyone is still there. The arm starts trembling and suddenly makes the same sign Roman made earlier. Ye becomes excited and says that is the characteristic gesture of the Shadow Hand. It seems they found the right person, and that this is probably the mask's owner. Then he asks if he has anything to say. The hand points to a shoe. The protagonist goes to the boot and says it smells terrible, but there seems to be something inside. Shen shakes the boot. The system sends a notification saying he discovered enough special items to unlock the auxiliary skill item, Knowledge, allowing him to see descriptions. A description appears. Night Shadow Insignia, blue quality, exceptional. The insignia is engraved with deep, arcane runes capable of activating specific weapons. Without the corresponding weapon, it is only a useless ornament. Ye wonders if it is connected to some weapon. At that moment, the dagger in his hand begins to emit an impressive aura. New notifications appear. The item evolved. Nightshade evolved into Nightfall. Nightfall is an exclusive human eliminator dagger imbued with the blessing of the shadows of the Shadow Hand Brotherhood, and only high-level eliminators can wield it. Blessing of Shadows. The dagger emits a unique power signature indicating the bearer's status and allowing them to accept missions from the Shadow Hand Brotherhood and receive rewards. The protagonist says he cannot believe it because his dagger evolved, and that is incredible. In the letter, there is a notice about an urgent investigation into undead activity. To all brothers and sisters, the Human Empire and the Elven Kingdom have issued a large-scale joint mission. Any information about unusual undead activity will be exchanged for a generous reward. Head to the battlefield. The survival of the races depends on unwavering dedication. Shen realizes that this is the Shadow Hand's mission. The Crystal Roman gave him mentioned a tent marked with 3 vertical daggers. That must be the Shadow Hand's location. It makes sense. Roman is probably a member, and when he saw the mask, decided to lend a hand. Exchanging information about undead activities for a big reward seems easy. He stands up and starts asking about any unusual undead activity. One undead says he knows nothing. Ye continues asking several others, but they all say the same thing. Ordinary soldiers only receive orders to fight. The protagonist comments that this is painful. The skeleton then says that in fact he can provide some information. Shen replies that this is true. After all, he has an undead right there, ready to sell out his own comrades, but asks if he is not trying to trick him again. The skeleton replies that the undead are his people, so of course everyone keeps an eye on him. He thinks that this guy always ends up having a hard time in the middle of the undead. The skeleton then asks what kind of information he is looking for, whether it is something capable of turning everything upside down or just something more ordinary. The protagonist replies that he cannot aim that high because he is just a nobody. After all, if he hands over information that is too big, they will investigate, and that would put his life at risk. The skeleton says he has something good enough to earn a decent reward. The undead are using new components in their artillery, which increases the power of the soul flame cannons by 20% and the firing rate by 10%. Shen asks if that is not too valuable. The skeleton replies that not really, because as the war drags on, the human high command has probably already begun to suspect it. They just still need confirmation. Shen says the information is useful, but it will not attract too much attention. After walking a little farther, Ye hides behind a rock and realizes that this is where the main army is encamped. The Shadow Hand drop point must be somewhere around there, so he starts thinking about how he is going to get inside. The skeleton says those humans are looking for wounded soldiers, so he just has to pretend to be injured and they will carry him inside themselves. The protagonist asks how the healthcare system works on the human battlefield. The skeleton replies that human holy magic is the best there is, to the point that not even the elves can compare, as long as there is payment, of course. Shen asks if even on the battlefield money is needed, and takes the chance to ask how it works among the undead. The skeleton replies that yes, obviously, and that if someone pays enough, They can even regenerate lost limbs. In general, though, the wounded are simply tossed aside and left to rot. Shen asks if there is no treatment at all. The skeleton replies that there is, but it is a lot of work because it requires a special ritual in which a sacrificial altar is materialized. Then a group of undead or living beings is captured, and then their life force is drained. This method instantly restores the body, but in exchange it consumes the vitality of others. On top of that, only high-level undead who master that knowledge can do something like that. Ye comments that humans seem far more cost-effective, but it is a shame that he is out of money. The skeleton replies that actually he still has some. Hearing that, the protagonist says he has just had an idea. Shen reallocates all his points into strength, grabs a giant hammer, and says that if he loses his voice after this and can no longer scream, the skeleton will have to help him. The skeleton asks if he is serious. In the next instant, the hammer crashes down on top of Ye, and he lets out a thunderous scream. The skeleton asks why he is trying so hard for such a tiny role. The protagonist replies that if he cannot even convincingly pretend to be wrecked, then there is no way he can perform well, even in a tiny role. Shen starts shouting for help and asks if anyone is there. A soldier hears him and orders the others to head that way because they have found a wounded man. Sometime later, already inside the camp, a healer uses her healing power to treat Ye. When she finishes, she says the healing is complete and that all of his injuries have been fully restored. The Lord tells her she may leave and that someone will bring the payment soon. The protagonist asks where he is. The Lord replies that he is safe, inside the human camp. Shen asks who he is. The Lord replies that he is Prince Norton. When he sees the shield Ye is carrying with the fierce hound emblem, he asks if Ye came from Rhine. Ye replies that he finally found the one he was looking for and says that Rhine was invaded by the undead, so they need to send help, because this is a message from the Lord. A mage uses magic on the crystal, and the message is transmitted. The people of the Empire hear the voice of the Lord of Rhine, who promises 300 gold coins and a large piece of land to anyone capable of bringing troops to save the territory because they need help. The mage says that it really is Lawrence's voice, and that the crystal is authentic as well. Prince Norton replies that Ye really did come from Rhine, but there is something he needs to know. Rhine has already been destroyed. The undead invaded the territory, and unfortunately, he is the only survivor. The protagonist's eyes fill with tears. He begins listing several names, asking if no one survived and saying he cannot bear hearing that. Norton says that he crossed through hell and came back, and that surviving the stone hammer of that giant undead cannot be called anything other than a miracle. He states that Ye is Rhine's last hope and says that now he needs to rest, without worrying about anything else. Tomorrow they will arrange for him to be transported to the Empire's rear lines, where he can live safely. Shen, however, thinks that cannot happen. He needs to find the Shadow Hand tent and deliver the information he gathered so he can learn some techniques. He cannot let them take him away from there, so he gives thanks and asks for permission to remain on the battlefield. The prince asks why. Shen, with tears in his eyes, replies that he needs to avenge his people. He says he cannot allow the undead to get away after what they did, and that he wants to fight them until he drives them all out one by one. The people around him feel sorry for him. Norton comments that he has a lot of courage for someone so young. He says the Lord of Rhine certainly chose him for that important mission for a reason, and asks whether he possesses any extraordinary skill. Ye replies that he is fast, claiming that no one his age in all of Rhine can move faster than he can. While speaking, he thinks about devouring the title One of himself and redistributing all his status points into agility. The system sends a notification informing him that the devouring has been completed successfully, that 1 green title has been consumed, and that 3 status points have been granted. According to the order he gave, all status points are allocated into agility. The protagonist steps out of the tent and asks the Lord to watch. Shen then begins moving at an impressive speed, running all over the place and quickly circling the entire area. Then he stops and asks if he can now remain on the front lines. The people comment that that child is incredible. Some say they can let him stay, that he can fight beside them and avenge the fallen comrades. Others say he can go with them, promising they will look after him. Norton observes that his speed is truly impressive. At that moment, an elf asks where he got that bracelet. Ye replies that it is elven craftsmanship, and that an elf named Laney gave it to him. Inwardly, he remembers that he previously revealed the undead's plans, so the elves owe him a favor and probably will not cause trouble. The elf then uses her magic on the bracelet. On the other side, Laney asks who is using elven magic to call her. The elf replies that it is she herself, Eudoria, Archmage of the Royal Court, and asks why a human boy is using her bracelet. Laney asks if they found him and where it happened. The protagonist greets her and asks whether the magic trick was impressive. Laney replies that it really was and asks when he plans to return to the village. Eudoria asks her to answer the question first. Laney then explains that not long ago, spies infiltrated the village. Before they could act, he discovered their plan, which left the high priest in his debt. She takes the chance to mention that the high priest himself is looking for him. Eudoria says she understands and that they will continue the conversation later. The connection is cut off. The elf comments that the boy is young, agile, and somehow managed to survive several calamities. On top of that, he has ties with the elven people. She suggests sending him to the imperial capital to study. Norton replies that it is rare for a human to receive the elves' approval, so he decides that someone should arrange an identity document for him and organize the details of his stay. He must rest for a few days, record everything he knows, and send the information to the Imperial Military Academy. Then Norton asks what his full name is. The protagonist thinks that he knows nothing about Rhine's customs or naming conventions, so he needs to pretend he has amnesia to avoid revealing his true identity. He says that his head hurts badly. The mage comments that he probably suffered cranial trauma caused by the undead Titan's hammer, which resulted in memory loss. Shen thinks that this turned out to be very helpful. Norton says that he can rest for now and that when they meet again, they can talk about it once more. At that moment, the system sends another notification informing him that he has gained a certain reputation and has the opportunity to acquire a new self-generated title called The Boy Who Survived. Ye wonders what kind of title that is and thinks that he does not even have a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. Then he asks if there is any way to get rid of that title. The system replies that self-generated titles require continuous recognition and publicity to solidify. If he wants to discard it, there are two possibilities: disappear from public view so that over time he is forgotten and the title dissipates, or act in a way completely opposite to what the title suggests, causing people to see him differently. Over time, the title itself will eventually change. The protagonist thinks that once everything there is finished, he will disappear for a while. The soldiers then say goodbye to him. He wonders who exactly that prince is, and how just a few words from him managed to raise his reputation so much. The skeleton explains that Prince Norton is the eldest son of the royal family, the future emperor, in other words, the heir to the throne. He was the one who led the alliance between humans and elves to repel the undead offensive. Then he asks if he now understands who he was speaking with. Shen replies that the man is truly impressive. The mage comments that the boy is interesting as well. Eudoria asks what he noticed. The mage replies that the boy is carrying a high-rank shadow insignia and that, for someone so young to have made it that far, he is certainly no ordinary talent. The elf then asks whether he is referring to that dagger. The prince says he saw it too, and explains that it is Nightfall, a weapon carried only by high-ranking eliminators. He comments that he did not expect to find such a talent simply wandering around and states that this was a real stroke of luck. Because of that, he decides to recommend him to receive a Medal of Valor in his name. In another tent, the protagonist approaches and thinks that he found the right place, because that is the Shadow Hand tent, the information drop point the Brotherhood established near the military camp. He greets the man there, but the guy ignores him. Shen then makes a hand sign and says, "May the shadows protect us." The bald man repeats the same gesture and asks what news he brought. Ye replies that he got that from the undead spiritual flame cannon, and comments that he has probably already noticed that their artillery has been hitting harder in this campaign. The bald man replies that it was good work, says it is valuable information, and asks what he wants in return. The protagonist asks what he has. The bald man replies that he has all kinds of things and says he should prepare to be surprised. He then shows a tactical camouflage dagger coated with a special poison, and explains that with a simple lick, it is possible to simulate one's own finalization, something perfect for eliminators on the battlefield. He adds that the poison is fresh and has a shelf life of 2 years. Then he asks whether the boy cannot sleep and says that all it takes is one lick and he will pass out on the spot, guaranteeing deep and refreshing sleep. Shen asks if there is anything else. The bald man replies that this does not have enough practical use on the battlefield and tells him to look at something else. The bald man whistles, and a horse immediately approaches, making noises. The bald man explains that this is a horse that pretends to have been finalized and says that with just a wink, it drops to the ground like a sack of potatoes. Ya asks whether that means it should be used together with the dagger, like a set or something. The bald man says he has a sharp eye. The protagonist asks if there is anything else. The bald man asks if he is still not impressed, but says that is fine because he has something perfect for him: veil-piercing lenses. He explains that these lenses were forged with dark crystals and allow the user to see through clothes, revealing money and valuables on anyone. Shen asks whether there is any nightmare crystal available, saying that he is looking to acquire new skills, techniques, or anything useful. The bald man replies that supplies are scarce because of the war and that only 2 are left. He says the boy must choose one. The first is bleeding, a basic skill that causes continuous bleeding and works with swords, daggers, or any blade. The second is Cold Wind, a kicking technique that sends both the enemy and the weapon flying away. The bald man asks whether Ye already has any of those and what he is lacking. Ye thinks that he needs both. At that moment, a voice tells him to choose Cold Wind. The protagonist recognizes the voice and thinks that it is the same mysterious person who gave him some tips and the Nightshade dagger. He asks why he should choose Cold Wind. The voice replies that it is because he is not from this world. It says that now he needs to find a way to get his hands on the undead spell Shadow Mirage and on the Beast Lord's Rumbling Thunder. Once he obtains those powers, he must combine them with Moonlight Deerwalk and Cold Wind. Only then will he discover the true secret. Shen wonders why learning a few skills and techniques would reveal a secret, but decides that it does not matter. He chooses to follow the advice and says that he will take Cold Wind. When Ye picks up Cold Wind, he feels a strange sensation. The bald man says that Cold Wind is only a basic kicking technique, but that the information he brought is worth much more than that and asks if he needs anything else. The protagonist replies that for now, everything is fine. The bald man says he will use that gold to cover the difference. Shen replies that he is very grateful. Ye walks away and asks the skeleton if he can obtain an undead skill. The skeleton replies that, as he said before, skills require a soul flame. Then he asks how he knows about that spell. Ye replies that it does not matter how he knows, and asks him to just say whether he has it or not because he needs it. The skeleton replies that he does, but explains that it is only a basic illusion spell and that it is not very useful. He says that as long as the user has enough agility and psychic energy, it is possible to cast it. The protagonist thinks that he has 75 status points. He calculates that by putting 3 points into psychic energy, he will reach 3.9, and by putting the other 4 into agility, he will reach 6.9. For him, that is perfect because now he meets the requirements. The system sends a notification informing him that the statuses were reallocated according to his will. Shen thinks that he needs to find an isolated place because if someone catches him using undead magic, he will be in serious trouble. Ye looks around and then activates Shadow Mirage, releasing an energy into the surroundings. The protagonist asks whether that is really Shadow Mirage and comments that it seems like a pretty useless spell, something that at best would serve to give someone a quick scare. The skeleton asks whether he really chose that trash spell and says that he thought he had better taste, but now believes he was mistaken. Shen replies that he would not understand and thinks that now he already has Moonlight Deerwalk, Cold Wind, and Shadow Mirage. Only Rumbling Thunder is missing, so he will find out what happens when he gathers them all. At that moment, a guard approaches saying that he finally found him. He congratulates him and informs him that, due to the heroic acts he displayed, Norton has decided to grant him a Medal of Valor along with a letter of recommendation. Ye is surprised and wonders about this Medal of Valor and how that happened, but replies that he deeply appreciates His Highness's generosity and that he will train diligently, striving to serve the nation. The soldier explains that he may return to the imperial capital together with the troops or travel on his own. Either way, he must take the letter to the Imperial Military Academy. He also informs him that there is a small extra included and says that he should keep up the good work. The protagonist thinks that, thanks to the prince's generosity, his expenses there are guaranteed. The gold he received from the Shadowhand Brotherhood will also be useful when he returns home. Since his goals there have already been accomplished, he concludes that it is time to leave. Somewhere else, Shen's gold is converted into 65,444 and transferred to the designated account as requested. Shen gives thanks until his phone begins to ring. On the other end of the call, the person asks what that sudden money transfer means and where he got such a large amount. Ye replies that it is just money he earned since joining the HMA group and says that the person can use it however they need. The person on the phone comments that it is a lot of money and asks if he truly does not need it. The protagonist replies that everything is fine, that living there costs nothing, and that at that moment he is going to the cafeteria to eat something. Shen looks at his phone and realizes that he has not checked his messages since entering the Nightmare Realm. There are many accumulated messages. Some people congratulate him for officially signing with the Human Martial Arts Group and say they are proud of him. Zhao also sends a message saying that everything was her fault, asking for forgiveness, and asking what he thinks about going to the movies that night to make up for it. Ye widens his eyes when he reads that and replies that she is very beautiful, but that it would be a waste. Chen also sends a message congratulating him for signing with the Human Martial Arts Group and asks if they can celebrate that night. The protagonist replies that he was thinking about going out to eat a cold dish with Hao Yi. Then he reflects that the problem is that he is being targeted by the Eliminators League, so leaving that place would be far too risky. Even so, Hao Yi just wants to celebrate with him. Even if the original owner of that body has already departed, the friendship with Chen still remains within him, and Shen can feel the genuine bond they built while growing up together. something he never experienced in his past life. Even though they are now following different paths, he wants to cherish that friendship while he still can. At that moment, another message arrives asking whether he can show him the human martial arts group that day, saying that it is the job of his dreams. Shen thinks that this is perfect because the group allows visitors and the place is completely safe. That way he can satisfy Chen's curiosity and celebrate at the same time. He replies by saying that they should have lunch together. Chen answers that this is amazing and that he will get there right away. Ye says he will meet him in the lobby. Elsewhere, when the protagonist arrives, he notices that something feels strange. There are several people gathered there, and a dark aura hangs in the atmosphere. Shen thinks that the aura of those people is completely different from that of ordinary people, and wonders whether those are the professionals that Mr. Qian mentioned. A large man glances to the side, approaches, and asks whether he is one of this year's newcomers. Ye replies that he is and apologizes, asking if he had been staring too much. The big man replies that it is no problem, saying that when he was recruited, he also used to stand there, admiring the group's professionals. The protagonist asks if he wanted to become like them. The big man replies not at all and says that back then he thought everyone there was just a bunch of arrogant idiots and that he felt like tearing them apart. Shen begins to think whether those people really are the professionals, displaying power with that insolent and arrogant posture. The big man then notices something and asks if the girl beside him, Wenna, is on duty that day, and whether she would like to have dinner later. Wenna immediately points a weapon at his face and tells him to get lost, saying that if he bothers her again, she will skin him alive, exactly as she did to that other pervert the other day. The big man replies that she does not need to be so aggressive. Wenna then turns to Shen and says that a boy named Chen Haoyu has arrived, explains that his identity has already been verified, and asks whether she should let him in. Ye replies that yes, explaining that he is a school friend and that they can let him in. Wenna tells him to stay there while she goes to get the boy herself. The protagonist replies that there is no need because he can go meet him himself. Wenna replies that this is not possible, explaining that Manager Qian left specific instructions. According to her, Shen seems to be in a complicated situation, so they need to guarantee his safety. Shen replies that he understands. Sometime later, still in the same place, Chen approaches and comments that the place is insane, saying that everything is shining and that it looks like Ye really struck it big. Shen replies that he can come visit him there whenever he wants. Haoyu says he has become a legend, stating that signing a contract with the human martial arts group caused a huge uproar at school and asks if he has any idea of the commotion when everyone found out. Ye replies that that is enough about that and says that he will take him to the group's cafeteria. Chen replies that he is not hungry yet and that he would rather first see where he is living. Ahead of them, there are a few people, and the protagonist explains that he lives on the 105th floor. Haoyu comments that he is literally living in the clouds. Suddenly, Shen receives a message. The message is from Mengyu. She says that when he was attacked in the hospital by that anomaly, a nurse witnessed everything, but afterward she disappeared. All they found was a mutilated body, but it was not hers, and they are still trying to identify the corpse. Mengyu adds that she also found a video and asks him to take a look. When Ye sees the video, his eyes widen immediately. In the message, Mengyu also comments that she suspects the nurse was silenced because of him. In the video, the person appears walking while looking around, trying to stay as hidden as possible. Mengyu adds that she's redoing the background checks on everyone around him. The protagonist becomes even more shocked when he realizes that the person appearing in the video is his own partner, Chen. Mengyu also informs him that this person was acting extremely suspiciously at school that morning, as if he were looking for something. Shen starts wondering what Haoyu was doing that morning. He remembers that at that time, he was inside the nightmare realm, which is why he did not appear on the security cameras even after they checked the entire school building. He wonders why Haoyu was looking for him. Ye remains silent as he watches his friend. Chen asks what happened. In the message, Mengyu also warns that if he encounters that person, he must be very careful. Soon after they arrive on the 105th floor, Haoyu becomes very excited and says that he has never been so high up in his life, asking whether Shen sleeps there every day. He comments that it is insane. Chen asks to see his room and says he can hardly wait to see the view from that place. The protagonist points and says that it is the room at the end of the corridor. Haoyu replies that they are almost there. Suddenly, Chen moves quickly and strikes Shen right in the forehead. However, that was only an illusion. Haoyu asks whether that was an illusion and says that it is impossible, questioning whether that boy really reached such an advanced level in martial arts. Ye then strikes his face, sending him flying far away. The system sends a notification informing him that he allocated status points consecutively, unlocking Moonlight Walk, Shadow Mirage, and Cold Wind. By combining these techniques, he temporarily activated a lunar style called the Incomplete Technique Frozen moon that shatters the heavens. Effects. Guarantees impact. The protagonist declares that he is not Chen and asks where the real Chen is. Right after that, more system notifications appear informing him that by successfully executing the incomplete technique Frozen Moon that shatters the heavens, his body underwent extraordinary refinement, increasing strength by 1 point, agility by 2 points, and psychic energy by 1 point. The Eliminator replies that it is already over and says the boy will soon be joining him. The protagonist stares back without retreating and rushes forward with a kick, but the Eliminator blocks it easily and says he can stop such a weak attack even with one hand behind his back. At that moment, Shen's energy suddenly surges, and he manages to launch him away. As he watches the result, Shen realizes that this must be the secret mentioned by the voice earlier. Who would have imagined that combining such basic techniques could produce something so powerful? Yeah releases his power once more, but the Eliminator moves in time to dodge and calls him a clever little bastard, saying he had been hiding a weapon the entire time. Though it is a shame his aim is terrible since he missed every shot. Suddenly an alert echoes throughout the building, announcing that gunshots have been detected on the 105th floor, and that all professionals must respond immediately. The protagonist says he was never trying to hit him in the first place while the drones repeat the warning about gunshots detected on the 105th floor. Then, in an instant so fast he cannot even perceive it, the Eliminator is struck by bullets in his arms and legs. Wenna appears saying that that damned skin swap technique even fooled her because she examined his body carefully and would never have imagined he was using Peng as a weapon. She throws him against the wall and demands answers, asking what his objective is, who sent him, and why he tried to eliminate Shen, ordering him to speak immediately or she will rip off his skin and make him beg for the end. The Eliminator replies that she will not get any information from him. In the next instant, he loses his life, and Wenna realizes he had a poison capsule hidden in one of his teeth and irritably comments that she should have knocked him out first. She admits she has never heard of anyone mastering the skin swap technique at that level because he deceived the entire security system and even fooled her, and now he is dead. Frustrated, she says all they can do now is hope the autopsy reveals some clue. The protagonist decides to stay quiet because he clearly does not want to irritate her even more. In the morgue, a voice reports that the technical team has completed the autopsy and reveals that the man was a highly trained eliminator who possessed no objects capable of identifying him, and even the Cyberranix database has no records of him. Wenna apologizes for her own incompetence, but Qian says she should not blame herself, since his human metamorphosis technique was perfect, and even the security system could not detect his true identity. He comments that they should leave, because that corpse is no longer useful. The protagonist says they can go first because he intends to stay a little longer. Qian agrees and says he will wait for him on the rooftop, thinking to himself that the boy can sense when someone is finished and wondering whether he might know something. Once they are alone, Shen activates the ability Whispers of Darkness and orders the Eliminator to rise and answer his questions. The Eliminator slowly rises and asks whether he can really speak with the finished, saying it will not help him at all because he does not intend to tell him anything. The skeleton watches with curiosity and comments that it is interesting because he has never seen a corpse resist the Whispers of Darkness. Ye asks why he still refuses to speak, and the skeleton admits he has no idea but thinks it will be fun to watch. Chains begin to move as a terrifying aura fills the area, and the Eliminator becomes pinned with nails driven through his hands. Creatures appear around him while flames begin to engulf him, and the pressure in the room rises in a frightening way. The Eliminator is consumed by the flames until he is completely burned, but his body soon begins regenerating again. Confused, he barely understands what is happening when the flames wrap around him again. The skeleton then says that he remembers now. When a soul resists the Whispers of Darkness, it is condemned to eternal torment. These flames will burn for 100 years, and that is only the warm-up. After that, the soul will suffer 3,600 different tortures, each lasting 100 million years, repeated endlessly until the sinner finally speaks. And if he still remains silent, even more powerful specters will be summoned. These specters especially enjoy stubborn souls because they are extremely skilled at keeping the victim's consciousness intact while it suffers. The cruelest detail is that only the punished soul perceives this dilation of time. For it, 100 billion years pass as if they were only an instant in the outside world. Faced with this, the Eliminator finally screams that it is enough and begs for it to stop, saying he will tell everything. The flames disappear immediately, and the skeleton comments with satisfaction that it seems he has finally understood. Shen then orders him to reveal everything he knows, every detail without hiding anything. A few minutes earlier on the rooftop of the female dormitory, Zhao is speaking on the phone. On the other end of the line, Mr. Han asks what the result was, and Yibing replies that she followed his instructions exactly, but unfortunately Ye did not fall into the trap and ended up joining the human martial arts group. She adds that she is only a high school student and does not have enough power to do more than that. Mr. Han says that tonight at 8 o'clock at the Maplewood Hotel on the west side she must not be late. Zhao asks if she really has to go. At that moment the phone rings again and Yibing asks who is calling and whether it is true she has been accepted into the elite high school program, saying that it is incredible. Zhao then replies in the message that she will be there at the right time that night. At that moment, Mengyu appears and asks her to hand over the phone, asking who she was talking to. Yibing asks who she thinks she is and what the hell she is doing spying on others like that, saying it is none of her business and asking why she should hand over the phone. Mengyu moves quickly, points her sword at her and says she knows very well what is most important to her. It is not her grades, but her pretty little face. She then asks if she will hand over the phone or if she prefers that she start by cutting off her nose. Zhao replies that she does not care who she is, that she will not get away with that, and that the police will arrest her. At that moment, Mengyu's phone rings, and when she answers, she asks if they have obtained any information. A voice replies that they captured the Eliminator. They are interrogating him at that very moment, and he has already begun confessing. Mengyu asks what he said, while Yibing, frightened, asks if it is Shen and whether he came to take revenge, asking if he was the one who sent Mengyu there. Meanwhile, in another room, the protagonist tells the Eliminator to keep talking. The Eliminator explains that they belong to the Eliminators League and that not long ago they received a joint contract. The mission was to eliminate him but make it look like nothing more than an accident. To do that, they staged a fake calamity at the hospital, and his partner was supposed to carry out the elimination. He himself eliminated Haoyu, assumed his identity, and lured him to the hospital. That artifact was supposed to be activated, and according to the plan, he should have lost his life there. But not only did he survive, an eyewitness also appeared. Because of that, they needed not only to eliminate him, but also to discover why the ritual had failed and recover the artifact. Then a police officer appeared, but he was inexperienced, so they were able to manipulate him easily and discovered that the two of them were connected. That was when they adjusted the plan. They eliminated the officer at the police station, took his place, tried to obtain information, and then, finally, eliminate him. Unfortunately, the plan failed until that day when another opportunity finally appeared. Shen asks where he hid Officer Luo's body, and the Eliminator replies that he placed it inside a cabinet at the police station. Shen then asks where Chen Haoyu's body is. The Eliminator replies that he hid it in the school's sewers, and soon, a voice on the phone confirms that the body mentioned earlier has been found in the school's sewers. Ye squeezes the phone so hard that it cracks and asks who hired them. The Eliminator replies that only the operations leader knows all the details. The protagonist asks who that leader is and where he is. The Eliminator replies that they call him the Skinner, a famous eliminator in the underworld, and that the human metamorphosis technique he used was taught by him. He is at the Maplewood Hotel, right at the exit on the west side. The nurse who served as the eyewitness is hiding there, and he is planning to eliminate her. Shen asks what kind of person this Skinner is and what his weaknesses are, but the Eliminator replies that his powers are unfathomable and that he has never seen him display any weakness. Ye asks that if he is so powerful, why he did not come after him personally. The Eliminator replies that with the reputation he has in the Eliminator world, personally eliminating a mere high school student would be a huge stain on his career, and he believes supervising the Shadow Eliminator is already more than enough as a favor for whoever is funding the operation. The protagonist asks if he means that the man has no distinctive traits and orders him to say everything he knows. The Eliminator says that if he had to mention something, it would be a peculiar habit: cannibalism. Mengyu hears everything through the phone and says she will pay a visit to this so-called Skinner. Shen tells her to wait, but she hangs up before he can finish speaking. The Eliminator comments that he does not know who that girl was, but if she is really going after him, things will not end well for her, because the Skinner loves eating women, especially young and innocent ones. At the same instant, Ye punches him and sends him flying, saying he should not answer questions nobody asked, and that now he can disappear. At the 5-star Maplewood Hotel, someone is having a meal. 2 people sit at the table, a man and a woman. The man comments that the initial texture is creamy and dense, but not quite pasty. When chewed, a subtle sweetness appears accompanied by a light bitterness that lingers on the tip of the tongue. He observes that the fact she hid there ended up enhancing the ingredient even more, and apologizes for the observation. He then takes a sip of the drink and comments that it is rich, full-bodied, and smooth, but the real highlight is the perfect balance between sweet and acidic, something that reminds him of a refined cherry, and that the plasma cocktail perfectly enhances the salty notes of the meat, turning the combination into a true work of art. He says it has been a long time since he enjoyed a meal of such quality and that it truly moved him. The nurse is missing one of her eyes because it has been placed on the plate as part of the meal. The man says that to show his gratitude, he will savor every piece of her. At that moment, the phone rings and he apologizes, saying some people simply cannot avoid interrupting dinner. After all, life is full of unpleasant surprises. Soon he receives a message from Mr. Han saying that he needs him to deal with the target personally. The man asks if he really wants him to handle it alone, and thinks that he has just received the news that his associate lost his life. 3 eliminators have already been killed, which means the target is definitely not an ordinary student. He replies in the message that he can handle it and asks what he will receive in return. Mr. Han says it involves a girl, and the man writes that it cannot be just any girl, because Han should know that his standards are quite high. Han then sends the photo. The man looks at the image and is impressed, saying that she is an innocent and beautiful lamb, and that just looking at her, he can already sense the fragrance of youth. He thanks him for arranging such a charming meeting, says he is truly touched, and declares that he will personally take care of that boy. Han replies that at 8 o'clock the girl will be there. The man says that time is essential and that he needs to make proper preparations for a perfect meeting that night. He observes that the perfume is not appropriate, that he needs to take a bath, change his tie, change his socks as well, and brush his teeth thoroughly, otherwise he will not be able to fully appreciate the flavor. Suddenly he notices something, looks at the nurse, and comments that he almost forgot the most important part. He releases a thread and says that their relationship ends there. The nurse is immediately cut into pieces, and the man comments that he would not want her to scare his guest. Meanwhile, the system reports that the digital image matches, the brainwaves match, facial recognition matches, and the identity has been verified, asking him to say a phrase that will serve as his personal activation password. The protagonist replies that 10,000 katanas tear through life and thousands of miles pass in peace. Qian comments that it is an impressive phrase. The motorcycle is then summoned, and Shen, surprised, asks if that is a ghost fire. Qian replies that it is incredible, and comments that if he had one of those at his age, he cannot imagine how many girls he would have conquered. Shen asks what the specifications of that machine are, and Qian explains that it has liquid cooling, a parallel 2-stroke engine, variable horizontal suspension, an ultralight space alloy body, a retro stainless steel exhaust, an ultra-long-range wireless motor, and full artificial intelligence integration. He adds that it also has a flight system with angel wings, able to switch between automatic and manual mode with up to 30 minutes of flight. Ye asks if it really flies, and Qian answers that of course it does, but since he has not taken the flight course yet, it is better to keep it in automatic mode. Just give the command to the AI and it will find a charging station by itself. The vehicle is linked to the user's identity, so the payment is processed automatically. Qian adds that the red version would attract even more attention, looking like a burst of fire. The protagonist asks if it can also change color, and Qian replies that it has an advanced camouflage coating that changes color on command, allowing any tone to be selected. Shen comments that as impressive as the motorcycle is, he kind of expected to receive a secret martial arts manual or something like that. Qian explains that it seems Kunlun evaluated his situation as extremely dangerous and therefore decided to provide a newer model escape vehicle. When the electric jet turbo mode is activated, it behaves like a missile, faster than one can imagine, capable of saving his life at the most critical moment. Ye says that if Kunlun believes he is in danger, then they probably already know who is after him. Qian replies that even if they know, they will not get involved in something so small, because their priority is the survival of human civilization. Unless he proves his value, he will not receive any rescue code or reward proportional to his potential. The protagonist reflects on that and thinks that in that world, if someone has no usefulness, nobody cares whether they live or lose their life, just like what happened to Officer Luo and Hao Yu. He then wonders how Meng Yu is doing and hopes she has not encountered that so-called Skinner. Qian says that tonight he must remain with the group and that he will not go anywhere. The next morning, he will take him to the examination site, where specialists from the 3 best schools will be present to guarantee maximum security. Shen replies that he can rest assured because he will not leave. Qian adds that the entire floor will be locked that night. Nobody will enter or leave, and they will depart at dawn. Somewhere else, Zhao arrives at the hotel accompanied by Meng Yu. Yibing thinks to herself that she hopes Han will not get angry that she brought that girl along. Meng Yu observes the environment and senses an extremely well-hidden killing intent, almost imperceptible, and then asks if she was the one who said that an online friend had provided various high-level elixirs and nutrients to improve her performance and secure her place in an elite school. Zhao replies that yes, explaining that all they asked in return was that she influence her classmates against Shen, tarnish his reputation, and even assault him. In exchange, she would receive everything she wanted. Meng comments that now that Ye has been accepted into the human martial arts group, her mission has failed, and asks whether Zhao has any idea what might happen to her after that. Zhao replies that she was kidnapped by Meng and asks if she should not be the one worried about the consequences. Meng thinks that Zhao is just an ordinary girl of humble origin. What she did to Ye was simply a transaction in exchange for benefits. But she has no idea that this kind of transaction is leading her straight into the abyss, and that it is not her problem. She then says she will give her two choices. The first is to hide nearby and when everything is over appear as a witness and tell everything she knows. The second is to pretend she never saw her that night, go meet the benefactor as planned, and act as if she does not know her. Yibing then runs away. Meng closes her eyes for a moment, and when she opens them, Zhao is already walking toward the hotel. The butler opens the door for her. The young man observes her and offers a flower, saying he can finally meet her in person. If she allows him to call her Bing, he believes she is the most beautiful and talented young woman he has ever met. He says he is willing to sponsor her, recommend her for admission to the province's elite school, and even finance her entire education. Zhao wonders if that is Han and thinks he looks far more human in person than he seemed online. She thanks him for his generosity but says she does not know how she could repay him and asks about Shen. The man replies that she does not need to worry about him, and Yibing asks if that means she no longer needs to bother Shen and whether he will not try to take revenge. The man assures her she can relax because, while she is near him, Shen will not be able to touch her. Zhao feels relieved. Suddenly, the wind begins to blow, and Yibing comments that it is getting very cold. She thinks it is a good opportunity to hold his arm. The man removes his coat and places it over her shoulders while thinking that he is sensing an extremely pure sword intent coming from outside, directed straight at him. Zhao thinks his clothes smell pleasant. The man realizes he has apparently become a target and concludes he needs to accelerate his plans. He says she is not only talented, but also has a kind heart, and that he has decided to recommend her for the admission exams of the 3 greatest schools in the world, asking what she thinks about that. Yibing is shocked and asks if he is serious. The man thinks that this moment, this romantic meeting, cannot be ruined no matter what happens. He then explains that years ago during an archaeological expedition, he made an extraordinary contribution, and Kunlun granted him a special access code. With that code, any research successor he chooses automatically qualifies for the joint examination of the 3 great schools. Now that place belongs to her. Yibing says she is not strong enough for something like that. The man replies that she does not need to worry because he will help her become stronger. For now, she only needs to enter the information into the phone. Zhao receives a notification stating that she is now qualified to participate in the joint examination of the 3 great schools. She hugs him and thanks him. The man asks if she is happy, and Yibing replies that she is very happy. The man observes her, touches her face, and thinks that the moment has finally arrived. Then, without any hesitation, he decapitates her head and kisses it, saying he is happy as well. He then sews the head with delicate threads and thinks it is a true masterpiece. He comments that just looking at her makes him want to cry because she is perfect, hypnotizing, frozen at the peak of beauty. An energy begins approaching rapidly. The man is crying and says he cannot wait to taste her nectar. At that moment, a powerful impact occurs. Meng bursts in with her sword in hand. When the smoke clears, Meng looks at Yibing and comments that it seems she arrived too late. She thinks she believed her sword intent would make him hesitate, but that man is even more insane than she imagined. From within the smoke, the man screams for her not to touch her, saying she belongs to him. He moves quickly, but Meng points the sword toward Zhao. The man immediately stops and begs her not to hurt her, saying he will give anything she wants as long as she does not damage the body. Meng replies that if he moves a single centimeter, she will destroy that corpse immediately, and asks who hired him. The man comments that she is using the Luo family's wave-walking sword technique, and that if he is not mistaken, she is the prodigy everyone talks about. He tells her to look around and claims his silk threads have already surrounded her completely, guaranteeing she cannot break through the web. He says she should be a good girl and hand over Bing. Out of respect for the Luo family, he might allow her to live. Suddenly, he notices something different. Meng is enveloped in an extremely powerful aura, and she says he will test a theory to see who can handle her sword better, himself or that corpse. The man begins to cry and says they have barely met and already must separate forever. Such a perfect masterpiece, and he has not even tasted the sweetest essence. Even if he cannot taste Bing, he observes that Meng seems even more appetizing. He asks if she intends to let him have her, and comments that although entering his mouth may not be as pleasant as it would have been with Bing, it only confirms that Bing really was the perfect girl. His expression becomes terrifying, and he declares he no longer cares because he will devour both of them completely. Meng thinks that threats and even the possibility of being finished do not seem enough to make this man open his mouth. So she asks what he thinks about making a deal. The Eliminator asks what kind of deal. Mengyu says that if he reveals who hired him, she will not only return Zhao, but will also allow him to try to eliminate her and do whatever he wants with her corpse. The Eliminator replies that he does not need any deal. He can simply eliminate her and take the body. Mengyu asks if he can feel her power and says that he may even win, but if he does not cooperate, he will not obtain an intact corpse. She promises that whether she wins or loses, she will not involve the Luo family or allow them to pursue revenge. The Eliminator seems calmer and asks if she is serious. Mengyu confirms that she is. The Eliminator comments that this complicates things, because betraying a client means breaking one of the iron rules of the Eliminators League, and in that case, he would be hunted for the rest of his life. Mengyu asks if he is afraid. The Eliminator replies that of course not. He would make that sacrifice 1,000 times for her. Just imagining embracing her and covering her with burning kisses already drives him insane. Mengyu says her sword will tear him apart, but the Eliminator replies that just hearing her voice excites him and that it is a delightful night. He says he never imagined he would encounter two such perfect works of art and asks them to allow him to express his gratitude. He explains that the moment he reveals the name of his client, the romance will begin. But first, she must allow him to escort her safely. After that, he will devote all his time to her. Somewhere else, the protagonist stands worried because Mengyu has not answered any of his calls. He comments that the dead Eliminator seems certain she would not be able to deal with Skinner and begins wondering if she is truly in danger. He asks the skeleton what he thinks Mengyu's chances are against Skinner. The skeleton asks if he wants the sugar-coated version or the real one, and Shen replies that he wants the real one and asks why he would want lies. The skeleton then says that Mengyu is doomed and fears that if he tells the truth, Shen will become agitated, try to help her, and end up finished along with her. Ye asks if he is serious and recalls the sword strike she showed earlier. The skeleton replies that clouds neither dodge nor block. He himself could release a fart and disperse clouds. He says he does not know much about the Eliminators of their world, but Skinner possesses the cursed statue of the evil Ghost King, and that his experience and power far surpass Mengyu's. Ye thinks that he wanted her help to discover the truth, but ended up putting her in danger. Her brother lost his life, Chen as well, and the witness has probably lost her life already. He wonders how many more people must lose their lives because of this, and thinks she is the only one truly fighting with everything she has for that truth. He cannot allow her to lose her life. At that moment, an unknown number calls his phone and asks if he is Shen. Ye confirms. A girl says her mother told her that if she disappeared, she should look for him and call the police together with him. The protagonist asks who she is. The girl replies that her mother is the nurse who saw him with the ghost. Shen asks where her mother is and realizes she is the daughter of the eyewitness, because he had registered the contact information at the infirmary when he went to the hospital. The girl says her mother asked to meet her at the Maplewood Hotel on the west side, but now she cannot reach her anymore. Ye asks where the girl is right now. She replies that she is at the snack bar across the street from the hotel. The protagonist tells her to stay there because he is coming immediately and asks her to call the police. The skeleton says he should not go because it might be a trap. Shen replies that the girl's mother may already have lost her life and that he cannot allow that to happen to her as well. Whether it is true or not, he needs to check. He stores the motorcycle in the spatial ring. The skeleton asks if it is worth it, reminding him that he is safe where he is and asking why he would look for trouble. Ye replies that he may hide now, but asks whether anyone can hide forever. With the gate ability, he can escape together with them. The skeleton says it is still dangerous and asks what will happen to him if Shen loses his life. The protagonist replies that he will not lose his life, and that knowing these Eliminators, the only way to extract information from them is by using the whispers of darkness. In other words, if he wants to uncover the truth, he can only rely on himself. The skeleton says it is useless because Manager Qian already locked down the entire 105th floor, and there is no way he will get out of there, asking what exactly he thinks he is doing. Shen then jumps onto the wall. The skeleton asks if he plans to get out of there by riding that motorcycle and says it will alert the entire building. Ye replies that he wants to reallocate all points to agility. The system notifies that all points have been reallocated. The skeleton asks if he really intends to jump and says that even with 10 points in agility, he will still lose his life if he falls from that height. The protagonist replies that there are things that need to be done and thinks that that rainy and stormy night is the perfect cover. Then Shen jumps. As he falls, he feels the cold wind howling and realizes the night rain is beginning. The skeleton screams in despair and says that if he loses his life, he swears he will use necromancy to bring him back as a brainless zombie just so he can scold him every single day. Ye opens a gate, steps inside, comes out again, and thinks that if he summons a gate at a safe height, he can use the realm of nightmares like an aerial springboard to soften the fall. If he repeats the process several times, he will be able to create steps in the air like endless suspended floors, allowing a perfect landing. The protagonist finally drops and lands on the ground. The skeleton says he is completely insane and comments that he thought he was going to lose his life in that little world full of dust. Shen replies that he is complaining, but deep down, he is completely impressed by his talent. He then orders the skeleton to take the motorcycle out of the ring because the night is going to be long. The motorcycle is summoned. Shen says that at every 10 steps there is a life, and that 1,000 miles of road continue without conflict. The motorcycle then shoots forward at high speed. On the west side of the city, Ye realizes he has reached the right place. He asks if she was the one who called. The little girl replies that she was and asks if he found her mother, saying she cannot reach her no matter what. The protagonist replies that he will look for her immediately and asks if she has already called the police. The girl says she tried, but nobody answered. Shen tries to call as well, but no one answers, and he comments that this is strange, asking what the hell is going on. The little girl asks if her mother is still alive and begs him to help find her. She says the room is 707, but she is too scared to go upstairs alone. Ye asks about her father. The girl replies that he lost his life a long time ago and that it has always been just her and her mother. The protagonist says he will take her somewhere safe first and that as soon as he finds her mother, he will come back to tell her. He orders the motorcycle to take her to the Human Martial Arts Group Tower and then return. A voice replies that the route has been traced and departure is beginning, with an estimated return time of 5 minutes. The little girl climbs onto the motorcycle and says she is scared and just wants to see her mother again. Shen tells her to stay calm because where she is going is the safest place there is. He promises he will find her mother and then come get her so they can reunite. She only needs to wait at the tower. With tears in her eyes, the girl says she understands. The motorcycle leaves immediately. The skeleton asks if he really plans to look for her mother and says that is a waste of time. That girl has nothing to do with him. She's only going to slow him down, and he does not understand why Shen insists on getting involved. Ye replies that her mother is not guilty of anything and that she is caught up in this mess because of him. The skeleton says a soft heart will only get in his way and asks whether he noticed anything strange about that place. The protagonist replies that now that he mentions it, there really is something odd. The skeleton explains that Shen was so worried about the girl that he did not pay attention to the surroundings. He says he can sense the presence of living beings, but since they entered that street, aside from their little girl, he has not felt anyone else. The entire block is completely empty. A sudden noise echoes. Shen asks if he heard that. The skeleton replies that there are sounds of fighting coming from the hotel and that they are getting more and more intense. Ye says he cannot wait any longer, that he is going into the hotel immediately, and asks the skeleton to keep an eye on him. If things go wrong, he should yell for him to run. Then Shen enters the hotel. The receptionist asks if he has a reservation. The skeleton warns him to be careful because she already lost her life. The protagonist asks how she lost her life and how she is still standing there. The receptionist replies that to make the environment more aesthetically pleasing, the master eliminated everyone. He used special threads to pin the bodies in place, and some kind of ritual magic controls the souls, forcing them to do whatever he wants. Shen asks why she is not attacking. The receptionist replies that they received orders to offer the best possible service to the guests. The master is busy fighting a powerful enemy and has not given any new orders yet. Ye asks, aside from her, how many other people lost their lives there. The receptionist replies that it was everyone. The protagonist asks what she means by everyone. She replies that it was the entire block. Everyone in that place already lost their lives. Shen is shocked. Meanwhile, the sounds of the battle grow more and more intense. The skeleton says the two of them went to fight on the rooftop and that this is the chance. He must find room 707 now. Ye runs down the hallway and soon says he found it. The protagonist kicks the door open, and when he looks inside, he sees several finished bodies scattered throughout the room. Shen asks how there can be so many corpses like that, and the skeleton replies that he can sense them. Every room is like that, some even worse. Ye asks whether any of them recognize him and whether there is any survivor. The people answer that they do not know him, that they have never seen him before. Everyone there already lost their lives and nobody can get out. Then one of them says she recognizes him because she saw him meet that ghost during her shift. The protagonist keeps listening, visibly shaken, and apologizes, saying she lost her life because of him. The finished woman replies that she is already dead and things like that do not matter anymore. Besides, it was not his fault, but if he is willing, she asks him to avenge them. Shen says she has his word that he will make the one responsible pay for all of that, and that as for her daughter, he will do his best to make sure she grows up safely. He tells her to rest in peace and leave everything to him. The woman calls for her daughter, and Ye realizes she is the mother of the girl who called him. Suddenly, the pressure in the air increases and an explosion goes off, The protagonist asks what is happening, and the skeleton replies that the building is being destroyed. Judging by the angle of the explosion, it does not seem to be coming from the two fighting on the rooftop. A voice echoes, asking who dares to interfere. The skeleton says one of the two who were fighting up there now has weakened life energy and is falling straight toward them. A voice orders them to show themselves. Shen thinks the shout he just heard was from a man, so the one falling must be Mengyu. Ye runs and catches her before she hits the ground. Mengyu asks what he is doing there. The protagonist replies that it is a long story and that he came to save her. Mengyu asks whether with that little power, he really thinks he came to help her and says he is an idiot. Shen tells her to be quiet and says she's going to be fine. Mengyu thinks that she worked for so long to suppress and hide her own power, pretending to be weak. Skinner was almost completely falling into the trap. Her entire strategy depended on a surprise counterattack at that moment. She never imagined that this brat would show up to help her and end up ruining everything, but she still has a backup plan. When she tries to say something, Shen slaps her across the face and apologizes. The system notifies that all status points have been reallocated to strength as requested, and Ye thinks that she is a swordmaster. One hit using all of his strength should make her pass out. Mengyu loses consciousness. The protagonist apologizes and says he just does not want her to see his secret. Shen then places her inside the gate. Skinner starts looking for her and asks whether she is hiding. He says he likes playing hide and seek and that maybe she does not know it, but he has eyes and ears in every corner of that hotel. Then he suggests they play. He's going to start counting now. Ye tells the bony one that he is a battlefield looter and orders him to hurry up and get some decent armor for her. The skeleton replies that he is a battlefield acquisition officer, not a looter. The protagonist tells him to look at that pile of junk he is gathering and still wants to say he is not. The skeleton replies that putting together a full set of equipment is not as easy as it looks. Soon they appear somewhere else. Mengyu is now dressed in a sacred rabbit suit which moves lightly like a bunny and glides as smoothly as silk. It may seem useless in combat, but the more skilled and fierce a swordsman is, the more they prefer equipment like that. The lighter the gear, the greater the gain in strength and agility. Shen asks if he is serious that there is nothing better than that. The skeleton replies that it was the only piece he found that would fit a woman. Ya asks how the hell he found something like that on a battlefield, and the skeleton shoots back by asking why anyone would bring that to a battlefield in the first place. He says he took it off some guy's body. Suddenly, a voice cries for help and someone shouts for help, saying she is losing her life. The people comment that it is the boy who survived, and the protagonist thinks that day is becoming harder and harder to explain. The people place Mengyu on a stretcher and comment that even while badly wounded, she still gives off a fierce aura. Besides, she is wearing a sacred rabbit combat suit, so she must be an extremely powerful swordswoman. They say the injuries are serious, and that rare divine runes will be needed to treat her. Shen says he has money and orders them to save her, to do whatever is necessary to heal her, wondering whether the money he earned will be enough. The people comment whether that is not the allowance paid by the prince, and Ye asks how he knows that. The elder replies that his coin pouch bears the royal crest, the symbol of royalty. The pouch alone is worth a fortune, so he can imagine the value of the rest. The protagonist gets angry and orders them to take everything and heal her immediately, because he does not think she can hold on much longer. The healers say they will do what they can and immediately begin releasing their healing magic. Shen watches them and thinks that with so many people helping to heal, humans really are reliable. The system then notifies that the battlefield is an inconstant place. The lack of spotlights had dimmed his title for a while, but now it has returned in full force. He saved an ally, carried her back to camp, and even sacrificed his own allowance to save her life. Each royal gold coin he handed over is worth 100 common coins. In other words, he spared no effort and spent thousands of times the normal cost of a treatment for a single girl. From now on, people will talk about his noble generosity, and the system congratulates him. He has become famous once again, the boy who survived. The protagonist, outraged, wonders what exactly it was that he did. The healers say the treatment is complete and call him once again the boy who survived. Shen asks how she is, and the healer replies that she is fantastic. They used the finest healing magic that exists and she is recovering rapidly, so she should wake up in a few minutes. The skeleton comments that he can feel her life energy boiling, and that human healing magic really is incredible. Ye thanks them and says he still has a mission, so he needs to take her out of there. He thinks that after spending all that, she had better really be full of energy or he is going to be furious. The healers say he can come back whenever he wants. Some guards ask if she is his girlfriend and say that who else would he spend all that money on to save? With that much gold, he could get around 10 wives. Somewhere else, Mengyu wakes up. The protagonist notices and says she is finally awake. Mengyu moves immediately, pointing her sword at him and asking what exactly he just did to her. Shen explains that the healing technique only works when the patient is unconscious. Mengyu realizes her wounds really are gone and says she judged him wrongly. Ye also apologizes for knocking her out all of a sudden. He warns her that that man is coming and asks whether she can still fight. The protagonist widens his eyes when he feels her aura. Mengyu is releasing an absurd amount of energy and says she is going to eliminate him. His healing technique is insane and she has never felt so strong before. Shen wonders about Sacred Guardian, trying to understand what kind of title that is, and whether that sensation of healing granted some kind of special bonus to her. He remembers that she needs to find out who is behind all of this, and Mengyu replies that she already got that information. At that moment, Skinner appears saying that he finally found her. He notices Ye beside her and comments that it is a pleasant coincidence. Mengyu says that unless he is hiding absurd combat abilities, it would be better for him to run and hide. She thinks that maybe she underestimated him before and wonders whether he is secretly a combat master. The protagonist does not argue and leaves immediately, saying she is right and that in a battle of that level it is better to look for cover. Then he wishes her good luck. The door closes behind him. Mengyu thinks that maybe his talent really is in healing and concludes that she will have to deal with it alone. Skinner observes that she did not run away with him and asks whether she was waiting for him the whole time. Mengyu does not respond. She simply swings her sword at him, generating a devastating impact that destroys everything around them. Beneath the rubble, Skinner says that is impossible because she was gravely wounded. Mengyu wonders whether he managed to dodge. Skinner then says he understands. First, Shen destroyed half the building with absurd force to open a path for her. Then he completely healed her wounds. The curse failed, and several elimination attempts went wrong. That boy is truly special. Mengyu becomes confused when she hears that he destroyed half the building and thinks that cannot be right. Skinner says that does not matter, because nothing is more hypnotizing than her. The aura of fury and desire she is giving off is irresistible and he can no longer hold himself back. The wounds spread across his body begin pulsing with excitement, and he asks her to give him a passionate embrace. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the healers comment that Her Highness seems to like that boy quite a lot, since she handed a mountain of royal gold over to him. They also say that the boy is very generous since he gave everything for the sake of his friend, and ask whether it was not an exaggeration for them to keep all that money. The leader tells them to relax. While he was healing the boy's friend, he hid the gold back inside her battle armor and kept only 11 coins. He also placed a blessing of strength on the girl, which should last about 3 hours, as a gesture of respect. The other healers are surprised. The leader explains that he also granted a blessing of agility, a blessing of resonance, and a blessing of perception. In addition, she received a spiritual blessing and yet another extra blessing. The healers ask if she received all the blessings, and he confirms that she did. He then explains that when all blessings converge on a single person, they form the most powerful amplification spell. Sacred Guardian doubles the effects of all blessings for 3 hours. The others are alarmed and say that spell is reserved only for royalty, and that using it without permission is an extremely serious offense. The Guardian says, it is rare to see the Sacred Medical Corps gathered in a war like that, and even rarer to grant the full set of blessings. They should consider it an early gesture of friendship toward the boy who survived. He thinks that fortunately he returned part of the gold and hopes the boy does not go around telling everyone about it. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Mengyu keeps fighting, moving quickly while her sword cuts through the air. Mengyu thinks that the speed and power of Skinner's threads are increasing. It is as if his attacks have become twice as strong. She wonders how he is suddenly getting more powerful and whether that sound of whispers she heard earlier has something to do with the increase in power. The pressure in the air keeps growing. Mengyu realizes it is coming from a specific point, and when the door is opened, it reveals several finished people inside. The whispers become even more intense. Skinner says she found the gift he prepared for her and tells her to listen. They are singing for her. He explains that it is the wedding hymn, the eternal curse of the plasma demon. Somewhere else, the skeleton says he finally understands what is happening. They need to get out of that building immediately and find a safe place. The protagonist asks if he is joking and reminds him that they are one step away from uncovering the truth. The skeleton asks if he is really going down there and says he thought they were going to flee. Shen tells him to look around. All the corpses have suddenly started chanting incantations, and that can only be the work of that lunatic. They need to figure out how to help Mengyu. The skeleton replies that the battle is far above their level. That psychopath is using an absurd bloody curse, so the best thing they can do is listen and run. Ye admits he is right because it would be foolish to simply throw himself into the middle of that fight, but there is still one way to help. The skeleton asks how and wants to know what the hell he has been looking for all this time. The protagonist replies that he found it, right there. The skeleton asks if that is really it and what is so special about that place. Shen replies that it is time to put the powers of the world to the test. While the corpses continue chanting, Skinner is kneeling with a ring in his hands and says he is going to use his threads to weave a wedding dress just for her. Several threads move around Mengyu, but she is faster and manages to cut them one after another. Even so, she notices something strange. Her sword gets stuck in the threads. Skinner slowly approaches and says he is going to place the ring on her finger with his own hands. At the very moment he is about to put the ring on her finger, Mengyu manages to cut the threads trapping the sword and strikes directly at him. Skinner looks on and comments that she was hiding another sword inside the first one. He says that is a pity, because with the power of those infinite bloody curses, he is invincible. She can fight as much as she wants. The harder the journey, the sweeter the fruit of victory, because the ending is already decided. Mengyu replies that he should not be so sure about that. She draws her sword again, releasing an absurd amount of energy. Skinner smiles and says that is the twin blades technique, one long and one short, controlled by Qi itself. The hidden sun and moon technique of the Luo family. He comments that it is impressive for someone so young to master a legendary sword technique, and says she is truly worthy of his love. He only regrets that she does not possess the divine blade. If she did, bodies would dance like thunder and rain. A cruel fate. Mengyu moves her blades and tells him to go to hell. The pressure explodes around them as she releases a terrifying power. Skinner tells her to come at him exactly like that. He then invokes the great two-headed serpent demon, thirsty for plasma. He offers the plasma of tens of thousands of the finished as sacrifice and orders the creature to answer his call. He declares that now she must sleep eternally in his arms. An absurd and intense aura spreads through the surroundings. Mengyu thinks that this is bad. He is summoning a creature and there will not be enough time to dodge. Meanwhile, on the other side, the protagonist asks whether the audience is enjoying the show that night. The two who are fighting notice something strange, and the finished begin to scream. Shen says that if they can hear him, they must answer loud and clear. The people scream that they are in pain, in agony, and that they need help. The creatures momentarily draw back. Skinner asks if his bloody curse was interrupted. Mengyu takes advantage of the opening and rushes in with a strike loaded with terrifying power, hitting him directly and saying it is over. Skinner only laughs and says she is wrong, because they still cannot eliminate him. Mengyu wonders whether not even a blow using all her strength was enough and whether his armor absorbed the impact. She realizes the corpses have started chanting again. Skinner, wrapped in a dark aura, comments that some idiot interrupting the two of them right now is irritating enough, but it does not matter. They can continue. On the other side, the protagonist keeps speaking and asks if everyone knows how to sing Happy Birthday. He then suggests that they all sing together. The finished reply that of course they do, asking how they could not know something so common. Everybody knows Happy Birthday. Shen tells them to forget their worries and sing together right now. The finished begins singing, and Skinner asks what the hell that is, trying to understand what is happening to his bloody curse. The finished keeps singing that the birthday may shine with a sincere smile, that they came together now with a love that glows, and that luck may follow him in everything he does. Outside, the rain begins to fall. Meanwhile, inside the hotel, Skinner is furious and curses Shen, saying he is going to eliminate him. He moves quickly. Mengyu notices and thinks he is going after Ye. The skeleton warns him to run, saying he senses someone coming straight toward them and that it must be that lunatic. Ye grabs the headset and asks whether his dead friends still remember the songs they like best, telling them to sing them for him one after another without stopping. Meanwhile, he runs down the hallway with the headset in his hand while the finished continue singing. Suddenly, Skinner appears in front of him and says he finally found him. But an attack cuts through the way. It is Mengyu intercepting Skinner and saying she will hold him there while her partner runs. Ye is impressed by how fast she is and replies that then he will trust her, wishing her good luck. Skinner shouts that if he runs, he will eliminate his parents. Mengyu tells him to ignore that and keep running. Skinner says he will wipe out his whole family, eat them in front of him, and skin them alive, declaring that he will do it right now. The protagonist only shows him the middle finger and keeps running. Inside a room, Shen paces restlessly from side to side, trying to think of what to do. The skeleton says he knows he is angry, but reminds him that he does not have any combat abilities at the moment. If he enters that fight like this, he will only end up dead. That trick with the whispers of darkness was just luck, and he should not get too full of himself because of it. Ye admits he is right and asks if, in his place, he would be able to defeat Skinner. The skeleton asks who he thinks he is talking to and says that kind of fight would be child's play for him. At his peak, he would crush Skinner with one hand, but saying that now does not help at all because he is too injured to fight, so they need to find a way to escape. The protagonist says it is good that he is thinking the same way because he has another idea. The skeleton asks what he is up to this time. Shen reminds him that they have a contract, and the skeleton asks what that has to do with anything and where he is going with that. Ye replies that he wants to make a deal, help him recover his power, and in return, he will help him defeat Skinner. The skeleton asks how he intends to help him recover his power. The protagonist remembers that back on the battlefield, near the secret tunnel, he mentioned healing techniques for the undead, something involving a ritual, the summoning of an altar, capturing several souls, whether undead or living beings, and draining their energy to restore strength immediately. The skeleton confirms that as long as he has a thread of life remaining, he can return to his peak in an instant. He then asks if Shen is thinking of using the finished from the hotel. Ye asks whether they would not be enough to restore his power. The skeleton replies that Skinner's magic bound their souls to their bodies, which makes them perfect for a high-level energy extraction ritual. The problem is that he has no power right now and cannot force the bodies to chant the incantation required for the ritual. Ye says he will find a way. The skeleton explains that the complete ritual takes some time, and as soon as Skinner notices what is happening, he will go mad trying to stop them. The protagonist says he will buy time for him. The skeleton asks whether he is really determined to eliminate him. Shen tells him to stop with the speech and asks whether he is scared now. The skeleton replies that he is afraid the boy will end up losing his life. Ye says that if that happens, he should use necromancy and turn him into a minion. The skeleton replies that he should have mentioned that earlier and decides to add that clause to the contract. The contract is updated and goes into effect. The protagonist then asks him to teach him the chant for the ritual because he is going to record it and play it back for the bodies. The skeleton comments that normally everyone chants together and asks whether he really intends to do it in such a cold and mechanical way. Shen replies that he is angry but reminds him that he is literally just ahead right now. He cannot enter the fight and would only lose his life, so using a recording is the safest method. He tells him not to get too full of himself and that for the sake of recovering his power, he is going to have to endure that humiliation. Ye records the chant, reallocates all status points to agility, and starts moving quickly through the building. He asks all the dead staff members to calm down and says they're going to begin a listening comprehension exercise. They must listen carefully and repeat after him without missing a single word. Then the recording begins. Deep shadows in the abyss of the underworld with the will of skeletal spirits form this altar. Guide us through the veil between life and death to this great banquet of souls, where they become one with the eternal bone throne. Invoke the mercy of the highest one, of the dark mother of bones, of the ghoul king, of the lord of darkness Mictlantechtli. Grant power so that the majesty may spread among all living beings. Shen then concludes by saying the exercise is over and that everyone must now repeat together exactly what they just heard. The Finnish begin repeating the chant in unison. Skinner asks what that chant is and says that guy is controlling the bodies. He needs to eliminate him immediately. The skeleton observes that it is working because the flames of the souls have started to ignite. The protagonist replies that they need to wait for the chant to finish. The skeleton explains that this is only the first step, but it is crucial. Now Shen needs to hide from Skinner, who will do everything possible to stop the ritual. He must follow the ghost to the rooftop because that is where the flames are converging. Skinner runs after him and asks what he thinks he is doing. Shen comments that he already arrived. Skinner keeps advancing toward him, saying that he will not escape. But suddenly, Skinner notices something. Meng-Yu is following him and strikes him from behind. Meng-Yu thinks that he is so obsessed with eliminating Shen that he's not even trying to dodge the attacks. He is using the force of the blows to gain momentum and move even faster. Skinner declares that Shen has nowhere to run. The protagonist quickly enters a room and disappears. Skinner looks around and asks where he is hiding this time. Meanwhile, the spirits keep chanting the incantation. Shen appears again and says he is counting on his partner. Skinner asks when he got there and whether he really dares face him, saying that he is going to tear him apart. The spirits begin moving together and the skeleton explains that he needs those lost souls to willingly pour their power into him. Only then will he be able to recover his strength. Yi declares that the time for vengeance has come and that they have only that one chance. He asks the spirits to lend him their strength and answer the call, saying that everyone must work together. At that moment, Meng-Yu shouts for Shen to be careful. Meng-Yu watches anxiously, saying that he has completely lost his mind, all just to eliminate him. Skinner charges faster and faster, closes in, and drives his own arm through him. Meng-Yu grows tense, but the surprise shifts sides. Skinner realizes in confusion that it was nothing more than an illusion. Shen summons the lost souls, ordering them to answer his call, work together, and eliminate that bastard. The souls echo in unison, revenge, and advance together. Skinner approaches Shen and taunts him, asking if he really thinks he can eliminate him and telling him not to make him laugh. Then something strikes him from behind, hurling him into the wall. The smoke clears, revealing a gigantic sword impaled through Skinner, wielded by a skeleton. A firm voice resounds. It was not trying to make him laugh. It said, it would eliminate him and it will. Waiting even one more second would be disrespectful. The The rain begins to fall and Shen, from atop the skeleton's shoulder, declares that this is the moment Skinner loses his life, right in front of those he eliminated. Skinner asks if he managed to summon a calamity, and Mengyu understands that this was his trump card. Shen orders them to finish him. The skeleton raises its sword and Skinner fires his threads, but the skeleton looks at him with contempt, saying that these threads are the great power he was so proud of, and that it is pathetic. The threads are cut, and the skeleton adds that it does not even need to lift a finger to deal with an insect like him. The lost souls begin to lament, saying they have been chained for far too long, and that the time has come for them to be freed. Those eliminated by Skinner reappear, light shining from their eyes. Mengyu watches, and the skeleton declares that the hour of revenge is near. Skinner, fallen and on the verge of the end, murmurs that he can no longer control them and that Shen has taken his magic. He fires his threads and tries to flee, but the skeleton notices and releases its power to restrain him. Skinner asks what happened to his body, and the skeleton explains that it is merely a soul suppression spell, which creates a dissonance between soul and body, temporarily paralyzing him without causing permanent damage, and that now everyone is like him, craving warm, living flesh. The spirits notice Skinner's body and begin biting into his skin. The skeleton reflects that people think eliminating the culprit ends the hatred, but they fail to realize that the tide of revenge never truly recedes, and that the eliminated will rise and drag him into the abyss. Skinner screams that he does not want to lose his life, promising to offer everything he has as a sacrifice to the gods. A spell is released, and Skinner thanks the great being, begging it to descend and take everything he owns. But he soon notices something and asks in despair why he is being rejected. Shen warns that Skinner is casting a spell and that they need to stop him. Ye advances with the weapon in hand, declaring that he will avenge Chen Haoyu himself. Mengyu tells him to be careful. Skinner thinks Ye is a fool because, even without the Lord of Divinity present, his shadow still protects him. Shen approaches and appears to be cut in half, but it was the clone, and he calls Skinner an idiot, saying he fell for the same trick twice. Ye fires a pistol, but accidentally hits a spirit. The skeleton is left confused, and Shen apologizes, admitting that he has no practice with guns and kind of missed, but asks them to use a fire attack and end it at once. The skeleton releases its power, striking Skinner directly, and dark mana begins to move. The skeleton warns them to be careful and uses the bone embrace. Shen asks what happened, and the skeleton explains that the moment Skinner lost his life, something obscure came out of his body and tried to ambush him, and that if it had not used the defensive spell, it probably would have been finished. Mengyu draws attention to it. The dark energy is still moving around Skinner's body, and the skeleton realizes they are trying to take the body away. Mengyu breaks the window and warns that it will not be that easy. Shen asks why they are not going after them, and the skeleton replies that it cannot run at full speed while carrying Shen, and that if it left him there, that thing could eliminate him before it could save him, so his safety comes first. Shen grows thoughtful. That shadow was helping Skinner, but whoever blew up the building was helping Mengyu, which means it cannot be the same entity, and that could only indicate one thing. There was someone else there. The skeleton tells him not to be frightened, because so far the mysterious person helping Mengyu did not seem to have bad intentions, and suggests that they could ask through the intercom. Ye addresses whoever just helped them, politely asking them to show themselves. The skeleton, however, concludes that they simply do not want to be seen. Shen notices a familiar sound and recognizes that it is the will-o'-the-wisp, then asks if it managed to take the little girl safely to the human martial arts group. The motorcycle replies that the mission failed and the target was lost. Shen asks what happened, and the motorcycle explains that the target got off halfway, landed safely on the street, and disappeared without leaving a trace. Ye is both surprised and confused, and the skeleton considers that the motorcycle is fast, and that if the girl managed to jump off safely, she is definitely not an ordinary person, reinforcing that it had told them not to help strangers. And fortunately, she did not turn against them. At that moment, Shen receives a message from Mengyu saying that she discovered the truth from Skinner, and only then had the chance to send it, asking him to take a look. Upon seeing the content, Shen is visibly surprised. In the video is Song Qingyun, and a voice asks what kind of boyfriend she wants in the future. Song answers in surprise, saying that she has never stopped to think about it, and the voice insists that it is time to start. After all, she is already almost an adult, and she has no idea how many talented young men are practically drooling over her. Song then smiles and says she remembers one New Year, when she was little and they went to the Shen family's house. She and her younger sister were chased by a very fierce dog, and Ye was the only one who stepped in to protect them. He was so kind that she always remembered him, and if she were to look for a boyfriend, she would want someone like him. The signal gets a little bad, and the people around ask who this young man is. Then a voice says it has information, saying that the boy is very average and that there is no chance of them crossing paths again. and asks if they are sure about Song's feelings. If she goes looking for him, they should take care of it because they do not want that guy anywhere near precious Qingyun. The voice assures them that it is not difficult at all, that they do not need to dirty their hands. They just need to hire someone and make it look like an accident, a simple matter of money. They will send someone to play with him and teach him a small lesson. Shen repeats the word play under his breath, incredulous. Then he thinks that he had reviewed countless possible scenarios. Maybe someone was targeting his family, or eliminating him was a way to get to his parents. Or perhaps his past self had discovered some secret and he had even considered that someone knew about the soul from another world inside that body and wanted to eliminate him because of it. But he never imagined the truth would be so absurd. The spirits then approach and thank him for helping eliminate that demonic man, acknowledging that alone they were no match for him and that only Shen was able to avenge them. They saw everything with their own eyes and are eternally grateful, but they desperately ask to know why that monster eliminated them. Shen reflects that the killer was clearly after him himself and dragged all those people down with him. Then he says that, if possible, he hopes they can be reborn somewhere else, that in another world they can live with dignity, and not like this, powerless, humiliated, full of regrets, leaving their loved ones in agony. He asks them not to worry anymore and to leave everything behind because someday, when he is strong enough to uncover everything, he will find the mastermind behind all of this and eliminate them, swearing that he will make it happen. Ye thinks that he is far too weak, that he could not even keep up with Mengyu to chase the shadows, forcing the skeleton to stay behind just to protect him. Then, a spirit extends its hand and places it on his shoulder, saying that no matter what happens, they are grateful that he avenged them, and that he should take care of himself and live a good life. Now that that demon has been finished, they can finally rest. They wish him a long life, free of illness and hardship, and that he gains the strength necessary to destroy the mastermind behind everything. They say they will be watching him from the underworld, eternally grateful, and then they fall to the ground. The skeleton explains that the spell binding them was finally broken and that they have returned to the underworld. Mengyu returns and asks if Shen is still there, and he asks what that black shadow was. Mengyu replies that it escaped, that its power is unreal, definitely beyond anything human, and that she suspects it is connected to the calamities. Provoking it would be catastrophic, because the power of a calamity can easily wipe out an entire city. That shadow was leaking some kind of abnormal energy field, similar to the field she could sense around Shen's giant skeleton. His power, which resided within her, gave her many insights, and she thanks him. She also says that once all of this is over, he should find a safe place to train and become stronger. Shen thinks that the title of Sacred Guardian should last a little longer and hopes she can advance. Then says that he watched the video she sent, but there are still things he does not understand and asks if she can explain. Mengyu lowers her head and says she has pieced most of it together, but it is a complete mess. Something far too complicated for them to get involved in. Ye asks who those people are. Mengyu tells him that he should leave quickly, that she will not tell anyone he was there, but Shen repeats the question. Mengyu replies that they are heirs of some noble families, and that she was unable to investigate deeply. Shen says that she also comes from a noble house and must surely know their names. Mengyu replies that noble families have hierarchies, and that compared to them, his family and hers are like ants beneath the moon. Ye asks if she is simply going to let it pass. Mengyu replies that the situation has exploded, with so many people finished, and that they need to present some kind of resolution. Shen asks what kind of resolution, and whether they will face justice. Mengyu replies that they will not, that they will be punished, and Shen asks her to explain. She says it will be a slap on the wrist, a punishment for a while, that sort of thing, and perhaps some compensation for him and the Luo family. Ye explodes, saying they must be joking that they failed to eliminate him but eliminated his brother, and now they will simply try everything to erase them and avoid future trouble. Mengyu replies that this is the price one pays for seeking the truth, that those are some of the most powerful families in the world, and that Song is a figure everyone is obsessed with. Alone, she can do nothing, and the Luo family will not help him either. Honestly, they should be grateful they encountered a killer like Skinner, who cared more about his own perverted satisfaction than the mission. If it had been any other killer of the same caliber, they would never have discovered the truth. In any case, the entire squad of killers has been finished, and she hopes that will be enough to bring some peace to his brother's soul and that he should go take care of that. There is a moment of silence, and then Shen asks if, had she possessed the power to eliminate every one of those family heirs, she would do it. Mengyu tells him not to be ridiculous, that their families are immensely powerful, practically the foundation of human civilization, and that if she even tried, her own house would be destroyed. Shen says to forget it, that he was only asking, and asks if she is okay with that. He says that her friend is finished, her brother too. Tens of thousands in that district were eliminated, Every one of them had parents, teachers, friends, perhaps even siblings and children. All of them should have had their own lives, but they were brutally eliminated, their bodies manipulated like puppets, forced to endure the agony of that bloodthirsty spell. And he asks whether, for those people, all of this should be just a small lesson, all of it just to play with him, questioning what they think human lives are, toys perhaps. He says he cannot accept that and that he will make them pay with blood. A terrifying power is released, destroying everything around them. Mengyu leaves with her sword, tears streaming down her face. The skeleton comments that he made the poor girl run off crying. Shen says it is over and that they should go back too, and the skeleton asks what the plan is to deal with that. Shen replies that he thought someone had a blood feud with him, but it turns out they were only playing, so there is really nothing to think about. The skeleton says it does not believe that. Ye says life is about being happy. The skeleton says it does not believe a word of it, and Ye explains that it does not understand humans, that they already find life difficult enough and therefore need to find ways to be happy. The skeleton says that does not mean he has to let people trample on him, and Shen replies that this is the human pursuit, to chase happiness relentlessly and strive to fill life with satisfaction. The skeleton asks how he intends to pursue that. Shen gets on his motorcycle and says it is simple. If they want to play, then they will play until he eliminates every one of them, a tribute to all the innocent souls lost that day, and a little personal revenge on the side. That will fill his heart with joy and perhaps make him feel that this life was not wasted. The skeleton says it believes him now. Shen asks it to return to the ring for now because something its size draws too much attention. Yi also tells his friend that he doesn't need to show himself, that it's okay, and thanks him for the help. Atop a rooftop, someone watches him and comments that he has grown so much. A little girl stands up and transforms into an older girl, saying that compared to when he was a child, he has become even sillier. The rain begins to fall again, and a voice coming from the headphones around the girl's neck asks if she is not going to see him, reminding her that he literally just saved her and even gave her a ride on his motorcycle, and that all that mess was her older sister Song's fault, but she could not care less, and instead ran off to help, almost exposing her disguise. The girl tells the headphones to stop complaining, saying that they almost exposed the disguise too, and asks if they remember. The headphones reply that if her identity is exposed in broad daylight, she will see how she deals with it. The girl says enough and that she will buy beef noodles later. The headphones ask for an extra egg and a bowl of wine, and ask if she wants anything for herself. The girl says they know her well and asks them to help erase all traces, making sure no one knows she was there, especially her sister's group. They must also erase every sign of Shen's fight without letting anyone notice anything. The headphones ask about the other witness and what to do if she says a word about that night. The girl replies that she will not betray Ye. The headphones say that is fine and that it is time to work. A surreal energy is released around them, and the headphones announce that everything is ready and that they should leave, saying they are already dreaming of those noodles. The girl then receives a message asking where she went, saying there is a party that night and that she cannot handle it alone, asking her to come back as soon as possible. The headphones say her sister is texting and ask whether they're going to the party or to get noodles. The girl replies that they are getting noodles because she made a promise and will keep it. The headphones say they are touched and ask if the party will be okay. Yinchen replies that her sister does well in those kinds of scenes and practically dominates the place, but she herself does not, and everyone knows that she, Qingyun's younger sister, is a completely useless waste of space. The headphones say that is the funniest joke they have ever heard. Elsewhere, blood splashes everywhere. Skinner rises from a bathtub of blood and asks if he is alive again and whether it was the Lord of Divinity who brought him back. A voice calls him a fool, and Skinner realizes it is the existence beyond words, thanking it for not abandoning its loyal servant. He says that, according to the agreement, he has already paid the required price, but that she clearly could have descended earlier, and asks why she withdrew at the last moment. The voice asks if he is questioning her, and Skinner is attacked immediately, hurriedly saying that he would never dare question her, that he was merely perplexed. He falls to the floor, and the voice explains that someone was hidden in the shadows and that it was not convenient to reveal herself at that moment. Skinner begs forgiveness, saying he did not sense anyone else nearby, and the voice replies that his power is only a flickering ember, so it is no surprise that he failed to notice. She says that at first she thought that world was weak and uninteresting, hardly worth a second thought, but who would have imagined that the cursed statue of the wicked ghost king, which she herself had bestowed, would be resisted? And asks about her power being completely stolen. She adds that soon after that, she was also defeated, and only then realized that the world is full of surprises, with even other existences similar to her having descended there and operating from the shadows. Skinner asks where the great being has gone. Then someone opens the door, and it is Zhao Yibing. Skinner asks how that is possible, but realizes that it is actually the great being wearing Yibing's appearance. The great being says that her latest creation is quite impressive and will serve her purposes well. Skinner says it is his greatest honor, prostrates himself, and declares himself ready to receive the sacred teachings, forever her devoted servant. The great being asks him to guide her through the world and allow her to see what secrets the world truly holds, and says that while they are at it, she needs to have a little talk about the boy Shen Ye, questioning how he managed to break the curse of the evil Spirit King statue, since that was a power that took countless eras to acquire and she wants it back. She says she crossed an immense distance to descend there and resurrect Skinner, and now she needs some souls to replenish her energy, asking if he surely feels the indescribable torment his soul is enduring. She explains that the flesh puppet is causing trouble, and that she used it as a vessel to bring him back to life, and that when it gets hungry, it will torture his soul, and given the current strength of his soul, she cannot let it starve for too long, or it will reduce his soul to dust. Therefore, she orders Skinner to hunt, eliminate 1,000 humans, and she will use their souls to nourish it, while the remains of their flesh are his. Skinner accepts the order and thinks with satisfaction that he can finally feast without limits. Elsewhere, someone moves quickly. Shen is on his motorcycle when a guard asks what that noise was. Shane replies that he just took a quick hoverbike ride through the clouds and that everything is fine. The guard says it was way too loud and that he should not keep making that kind of racket at night. Besides, it is not safe. Ye apologizes and promises it will not happen again. Back in his room, sitting on the floor, Shen feels a deep sense of relief and says he cannot believe the root of all that was because his past self helped a pair of girls when he was a child, that so many people lost their lives, and that to those noble families, it was just a little game, concluding that they are a bunch of scumbags. Then the phone rings and Shen realizes it is a relative. When he answers, the person introduces himself as his first uncle. Ye thinks that the first uncle of the family, Shuo Feng, is the one who handles the Shen family's day-to-day affairs, and that every time he went there he would give him the coldest look, never caring about his mother or him, sometimes even mocking his father, and he wonders why he is calling now. Shuo Feng says he heard that Ye was sick some time ago, and that his mother came to the family to ask for medicine, but that he was away at the time, and now that he has returned, Ye can come pick it up whenever he wants. Shen replies that he no longer needs it, because he has already recovered. Shuo Feng says that is good to hear, but that in truth there is something he needs to say. He asks if Shen remembers when he used to come home for New Year and whether the children of other noble families visited the Shen family. Shen replies that he remembers, and Shuo Feng says that is good, explaining that he was quite a troublemaker back then and caused many problems, and that once he makes the arrangements, Shen will return in a few days to publicly apologize to the heirs of those noble families. Shen asks about apologizing, and Shuo Feng replies that it is for his own good, that he offended too many people when he was young, and now needs to take responsibility, publicly apologize, and earn their forgiveness, which will also make the Shen family look good. Shen Ye thinks that these must be the consequences of Meng Yu letting something slip, and that if he really goes and apologizes, he will be admitting that everything was his fault. The deaths of tens of thousands will have nothing to do with those rich kids anymore, and he will become the only scapegoat. The Shen family, on the other hand, will gain favor with those families, and this uncle might even benefit from it. The hunt against him will not stop, and his elimination may even become perfectly justified, dragging his mother, his father, and Meng Yu into it. So this is what he calls for his own good. Shen says that as far as he remembers, he never offended anyone, and asks if Shuo Feng can clarify a few specific cases, who it was, how he offended them, and when it happened. Shuo Feng replies that he does not need to worry about the details, that he only needs to do as he says when the time comes. Shen Ye thinks that if he did not know the truth, he might actually believe he had offended someone, and says there is a small problem that, if left unresolved, prevents him from following the instructions, thinking that the great family does not hesitate for even a moment to sell itself out for its own benefit. Shuo Feng asks if it is about his mother losing the medicine and whether he wants compensation, saying that he is so young, he has not learned much, but he has certainly learned how to be greedy, then asks what he wants. Shen replies that it is not about that it is a question bothering him and preventing him from obeying. Then he asks who the hell Shuo Feng thinks he is. Shuo Feng warns him not to push his luck. Shen says he seems to think he's very important, and since he is so capable, why does he not crawl over and wag his tail in front of those people himself? Then adds, you know what? That is exactly what he is going to do. Wag his tail for them. Shuo Feng calls him an insolent brat and says this is not up to him, asking if he thinks he can defy his grandfather's decision, and then hangs up. Shen Ye notices that he has already hung up and complains that he had not even finished speaking. Soon, another call comes in, and Shen realizes it is an unknown number with a video call. It is a few girls who introduce themselves as Yan's sisters from Phoenix Island and ask if he wants to go to the midnight bikini party. Shen Ye widens his eyes. The girls say he is handsome and that there are a bunch of girls dying to meet him. Shen replies that he does not think it is a good idea, that it is already very late and he really cannot go out. The girls say it is fine and that they will send someone to pick him up. Shen insists that he really cannot and tells them to be careful going out at night, asking if he needs to go protect them. The girls ask if he is snubbing Big Sis and whether he does not care at all about the luck he is having. Shen says that is not it, that there are so many of them, he's afraid he might end up drunk and they might take advantage of him, that he is going to sleep, and hangs up the call. Then he thinks that these powerful families have the best gossip and have definitely already figured out the whole situation, and he can bet he will receive more calls like that from people wanting to take a peek at the guy Qing Yun, the heiress of the most powerful family, actually wants to marry, shamelessly calling to try to drag him out and display him like a circus freak. He asks himself that if he were a calamity, who would dare give orders like that? The system then notifies him of a special reminder. There are 10 minutes left until midnight, and on that new day, the first time he enters through the door, he will receive a title. There is currently a chance to obtain a special secret skill, under the condition that he earns the title One of Their Own for the third time. Since he has already obtained the title twice, he will receive certain key reminders during his actions, and this is the only opportunity to acquire the secret skill. Shen thinks that in that world there is no such thing as peacefully staying at home and wiping out all enemies as if by magic. Whether fighting against the schemes of the family or crushing those spoiled nobles to avenge the innocent and himself, everything comes down to power, the power to smash anything in his path. He needs to seize this opportunity and figure out how to obtain that secret skill. Shen Ye summons the door and enters. The skeleton comes out of the ring and Shen asks what happened. The skeleton replies that the time has come for them to part ways. Shen says it can move freely now, and the skeleton confirms it, explaining that it needs to return to the undead clan, that it has many pending matters, and cannot keep dragging things out like this. Shen says he supposes this is where they each go their own way. The skeleton thanks him for helping it recover its strength, and realizing that Shen does not even have a storage item, asks him to take the ring as a keepsake. Shen thanks it and says he wishes he had a farewell gift too, but the skeleton says it is unnecessary because Shen has already helped restore its power. Then it says goodbye and walks away. Shen thinks that he barely spent a few days with it, and now the big skeleton is loose out there again, wondering if it can survive outside. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, and Shen ducks because of the intense pressure. A voice screams, "No!" and Shen recognizes it as the big skeleton, wondering in disbelief if the man barely took a few steps and already ran into an enemy. Everything falls quiet afterward, and Shen considers that with the power the big skeleton has, it is hard to imagine it could not withstand a single blow, concluding that it must have been an extremely powerful destructive force, because he barely saw anything so terrifying during the fight with Skinner. He thinks that going there would be asking to get screwed, and that sometimes it is better to avoid a problem than face it head-on, so it is better to just run. The system notifies him that the key reminder has been activated. He has been seen, and if he retreats now, it will negatively affect the title evaluation, and he will not be able to obtain the title One of Their Own for the third time. Shen thinks that people also say that when your buddies are in trouble, you have to go lend a hand. After all, he is close to him, clarifying to himself that, of course, he is not doing this only because of the title. A sound is emitted and Shen is pinned in place, unable to move, with a terrifying aura enveloping him. A creature says it has fine prey today. Shen asks about Fern and what they did to his friend, thinking that he is screwed and needs to stay calm and try to befriend them first. The creature asks what friend, saying that as far as it knows, humans do not go around calling undead their friends. Fern thinks that the last time Shen covered for him during that elimination mission in the Elven village, not only did the mission fail, but a bunch of undead were dragged into trouble because of it, and now the other undead are there to settle accounts with him. Shen can see Fern's thoughts and thinks he will find a way to handle this. Then he starts acting, saying that of course Fern is his friend, that he saved his life, and that he has already decided they are in this together, that they are going to bring down that damn human empire. The skeleton asks if the two of them think they can bring down the human empire and whether they think he is a fool, saying they are asking to lose their lives. Shen asks him to wait and look at this first, saying that he and Fern have almost infiltrated the human high command and that here is the proof. The creature says it wants to see what trick he is trying to pull. The system shows a Medal of Valor granted to the last survivor of the Rhine territory, whose bearer receives an effect where a sacred sign appears, awarded to the boy who survived by Prince Norton, a candidate for the next heir of the sacred Amethyst Empire. The undead comment that it is a medal from the prince himself and that they cannot believe that human is telling the truth. The creature asks where he got it and orders him to speak quickly. Shen realizes that the creature's title is Sinister Star and thinks it is no wonder that having a title really makes someone far too overpowered. Then he says that he and Fern have already planned everything and are going to infiltrate the imperial capital to eliminate the emperor. The creature calls him an idiot, saying that the medal may be real, but asking if he truly thinks the two of them can infiltrate and eliminate the human emperor so easily. Shen thinks that, so far, he has seen 3 beings with titles: the elven high priest, Mengyu, and that undead creature. Even without titles, Skinner and Fern are extremely strong, even stronger than Mengyu, who has a title, so he wonders what these titles truly mean. Shen says he already has a way to enter the upper ranks of human society, and thinks that if someone tells a lie several times, no one will believe it. But they will definitely think he is an idiot, and someone like that would tell the truth without thinking twice. An idiot would genuinely believe he could eliminate the emperor. The creature examines it and says it is a recommendation letter for the Imperial Military Academy, handwritten by Prince Norton himself, with handwriting identical to Prince Norton's directives that it has already captured, concluding that it is authentic, and asks what the hell he is. Shen asks why it does not explain the reason it is after his friend. The creature says it has nothing to hide and may as well tell him. During the mission to eliminate the chief of the elven village, everyone was captured, and Fern was the only one who abandoned the mission and ran away. And that kind of behavior deserves severe punishment. Shen laughs and the creature squeezes his cheek, asking what is so funny. Shen replies that he is laughing at how stupid they are, that Fern was clearly the only one who sensed the elf's trap and got out alive, and that he even saved him, asking if they really want to eliminate him for that. Fern explains that the village chief was there, that the one in command was the elven high priest, who was prepared to massacre any killer disguised as an elf. The creature asks for proof. Shen says they will find out on their own, that his story is spreading freely through the human military camps, and that everyone knows he appeared in the elven village, exactly where Fern's mission was. The creature asks if he is that famous, and Shen replies that it is obvious, that the prince himself wrote him a recommendation letter and even called him the boy who survived. The undead wonder if it is true, if Fern really was the only one who sensed the danger and retreated first. The creature orders them to check, warning that if that brat dares to lie, it will make him wish he had never been born. Shen tells them to go check and find out. The creature admits that he has a lot of courage and that he almost made it believe him, but that he is human, asking why he would betray his own race. Shen replies that it is because he is fed up with being exploited by capitalists. The creature asks what capitalists are, and Shen tries to explain it in an easy way, saying that he is a poor nobody with no tools to produce anything or get rich, forced to sell his labor to the owners of the tools, the so-called capitalists, and that at work he produces far more value than he earns, being exploited to the bone by them just to barely survive. The undead are left confused, and the creature says this is what happens when one does not read a book, then asks the other undead if he understood what Shen was saying, to which he replies that he did not. The creature asks exactly how these capitalists torture him so much that he hates them like this. Shen replies that they put him under 996. The creature says that is cruel and asks what it is. Shen explains that it means from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, less than an hour for lunch and dinner, more than 10 hours of work a day, 6 days a week. The creature says that is quite heavy. Shen adds that afterward he even went through 007, working from midnight to midnight 7 days a week with no days off, which they call 007. The creature feels sorry for him and hugs him, and Shen thanks it. It says it thinks it is starting to understand him and asks how, in such a brutal environment, he survived all this time. Shen, with tears in his eyes, says he remembers that day, that the snow was falling heavily, and that he was freezing and dying of hunger, and that all he had was a single box of matches. The system notifies him that the undead have decided to expose the atrocities of humanity's 996 and 007, and that Shen will be the central figure in this public opinion, with the new title, The Little Match Seller, likely emerging from it. Shen thinks that the boy who survived was already stuck to him with super glue, and now they are going to stick the little match seller on him, and he decides there is no way he is accepting that. He says that when he was about to lose his life from freezing, Fern saved him, so he is his savior, and he absolutely will not allow them to frame him or do whatever they want with him. An undead approaches and says they have confirmed the reports, that he is telling the truth, that the high priest really was hidden in that village, planning to annihilate the killers all at once. The undead comment that Fern not only discovered the elves' trap, but also convinced a young human who already had a Medal of Valor and was about to be sent to the Imperial Military Academy to join them, which is a great achievement. The creature considers that the superiors ordered Fern's execution, but given how things unfolded, he absolutely cannot be finished, because dealing with Fern would be like stabbing all of its soldiers in the back, and sooner or later it would be thrown away by the superiors itself, publicly executed to calm the masses. The undead superiors would take all the credit and it would merely be their damn stepping stone. But it already beat Fern until he was just ahead, and saving him now would cost a fortune. No matter how it looks at it, it is a terrible deal, and it is not going to pay that bill. The creature sighs and says it seems Fern is a brave undead warrior who has not forgotten his duty, and that this medal is awarded to him, an honor he deserves. As for Shen, it says that from now on they will call him the Little Match Seller, and that this title can hide his identity as the boy who survived. The system notifies him that the new title, the Little Match Seller, has begun to emerge. Shen thinks he failed to dodge it. The creature says it is truly proud of the two of them and that they must report the matter immediately, leaving things there with them. Shen asks if it beat him like that and is simply going to leave him there, then notices that they disappeared in the blink of an eye. Fern explains that it is as he said, that when undead get injured, they are usually just thrown outside to fend for themselves. Fortunately, his power was not lost. 'Tis all in the skull, and as long as he can regrow some bones, he will be fine. Shen says fortunately nothing, that he does not even have a body anymore, and is worse off than when Shen first met him. The skeleton asks if he threw the aquarium away, and Shen replies that he paid good money for that and would never throw it away, promising that as soon as they return, he will order a calcium supplement solution for him. The skeleton thanks him and asks if humans really have terrifying things like capitalists, and Shen replies that they do, but not in his world. Fern says that is good to hear, and Shen asks why he is worrying about human things. The skeleton explains that it does not understand how things work in the world, that around there all races love learning from humans, and that if they have capitalists, the undead will soon have those kinds of guys appearing too, and just thinking about it is terrifying. The system notifies him that another key reminder has been activated. Shen has been seen again, and this is a crucial moment to complete the third title, one of their own, with absolutely no possibility of escape. A voice orders him to stay still, and it is guards saying he has been caught red-handed, conspiring with undead. Someone recognizes him as the boy who survived, and it is Prince Norton. The prince wants to know what is happening there and warns him not to even think about lying, saying that any falsehood will be exposed immediately and that he himself will eliminate him. Shen asks to introduce himself, saying that this is his informant, Fern, field collection officer of the 5th Brigade of the Skeleton Army with whom he has made deals, passing information about the undead, and that they have a contract. Norton asks in surprise how it is possible for a human to have made a contract with an undead. A mage confirms that he is not lying, saying that he is monitoring his words, actions, and soul with continuous arcane magic. The guards comment that they never thought the legendary boy who survived would have tricks like this up his sleeve, and that he is truly as incredible as the rumors say. An elf asks if he really obtained information about the undead from Fern, and Shen confirms it, saying that he already delivered it to the Shadow Hand Brotherhood. The elf says she believes him, that she specializes in soul magic and is highly sensitive to corrupted souls, and that his soul is remarkably pure, full of righteous anger and unwavering conviction, making it impossible for him to be an undead puppet. The prince asks about an undead and why he would form a transactional relationship with him. Shen replies that Fern was treated quite unfairly on the undead side and that he has been going through a really rough time. Fern adds that it was because he suffered under 996. The prince asks what that is, and the skeleton explains that he went through many unfair things humans probably cannot even imagine, but that there are capitalists among the undead. Norton asks if that is a new type of undead, and Fern replies that exactly, that he is a poor working undead with no tools to produce things or get rich on his own, forced to sell his labor power to those who possess the means of production, the capitalists, and that during work he generates value but is exploited by those disgusting capitalists, all just to survive with the bare minimum. The mage considers that undead do not lose their lives and never get tired, making them perfect targets for exploitation, since they do not need to eat and can keep working non-stop, saving the capitalists a fortune in labor costs. The prince asks what 996 is, and the skeleton replies that it means from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, less than an hour of break, more than 10 hours of work a day, 6 days a week. The prince says that is quite harsh. Fern adds that afterward he also went through 007, working from midnight to midnight, 7 days a week without rest. The mage says it is an indescribable horror. The prince hugs him and says he thinks he is starting to understand him better. then asks how, in such an inhuman environment, he managed to survive all this time. The skeleton says he clearly remembers the day everything changed, that the snow was falling heavily, and that when he managed to escape, he saw the boy who survived freezing and dying of hunger, with only a box of matches on him. Shen asks them to forget that part about the matches, saying it is not important now, but Fern insists, saying that Shen was the one who struck a match and lit a small fire to warm him, that it was the first time he felt human kindness and warmth, and that it was then he made the most important decision of his life and decided to rebel. The system congratulates Shen, saying that he and his companion have initiated a large-scale condemnation of capitalists, and that the new title, the Little Match Seller, has prospered and now rivals the boy who survived. Shen gets irritated and wonders if there is not a single remotely decent title in that system. The prince asks how he can prove who he is and whether he has any evidence. The skeleton replies that he has a medal made from skull bone. The mage analyzes it and says that only the one to whom the medal was granted can ignite the soul fire, concluding that they are telling the truth. The prince thinks that an undead betraying his side to serve a human has never truly happened before, and considers that this is what it feels like to witness history unfold before his eyes. Norton says that Fern was gravely wounded in battle and even forgot his original name, and that as prince of the sacred Amethyst Empire, he must grant him a name. The guards are surprised, commenting that being granted a name by a prince is a tremendous honor, and that if he obtains one, as long as he is in human lands, he will have food and shelter guaranteed for the rest of his life, and that without a doubt, being only a teenager, if he earns military glory in the future, they cannot even imagine how far he might go. Norton then says that he will be called Ha, but Shen asks that it be anything but that name, anything that does not start with Ha, pleading sincerely. The prince says that, on second thought, he wonders if Lowly would not be a good option. Shen thinks that even Harry would have been better than that. Norton notices that he did not like that name much either, and says he sees that in human history there are legends about two divine children, saying that when endless calamities ravage the world, they appear to save all devoted followers. One is called Lowly and the other Peppa, and since he does not seem to have liked Lowly and is making that face, they will go with Peppa, which may be a good alternative. The guards line up in rows, releasing absurd energy. The prince says that from that moment on, Fern will never betray humanity, and that if he breaks that oath, his soul will shatter instantly, and that the second he makes that vow, he will become a hero admired by all, possibly even becoming a saint over time. Shen thinks that becoming a saint would not be a bad deal and says that he himself, Peppa, solemnly swears that no matter what happens, he will never betray humanity. A very strong light is emitted around Shen. The mage congratulates him and says that the ceremony is complete and that from now on, he is no longer Peppa. Shen gets excited and asks if that means he gets a new name after the ceremony. Everyone calls him Saint Peppa, and Shen does not seem to like that at all. Norton says he will pretend he did not see what happened there and asks him and his partner to be more careful from now on without slipping up, and that if anything happens, he must inform him in advance, assuring him that if they manage to accomplish something great, he will not hesitate with the rewards. Shen says he understands. The prince hands him an enchanted sheet of letter paper, explaining that anything written on it instantly synchronizes with the corresponding sheet in his hand, that it is a special item for royal intelligence, and that if he receives any important information or significant events arise, he should use it to contact him. Shen says he will serve humanity until the end, thinking that now they are finally making progress and that this skeleton from undead intelligence must know plenty of dirty secrets. The prince says goodbye and the elf says she will tell him a secret. The name Peppa actually holds a secret. Shen asks what secret. The elf explains that in the legends, the divine child, Peppa wielded weapons that constantly changed, swords one moment, spears and bows the next, sometimes even strange weapons unknown to humanity, and that those who carry this name usually prove naturally skilled with all kinds of weapons. Shen asks if the name Peppa comes from wielding strange weapons, saying he understands. The elf says he is as sharp as ever and understood immediately, asking him to remember that he also needs to work hard, striving to become a master proficient in every kind of weapon. Shen asks if there are many people named Peppa, and the elf replies that quite a few, that she herself knows 5 humans, Old Peppa, Little Peppa, Red Peppa, Big Peppa, and Fat Peppa, and that he is the most special one, Saint Peppa, personally named by the royal family in the kingdom. Shen thinks it is somewhat comforting to know he is not the only one stuck with that name. The elf asks him to keep it up, saying that the prince has great hopes for him, and then they walk away. The skeleton calls Shen Peppa and says they should go too. Shen gets irritated, saying that he is provoking him and should not call him that. The skeleton asks why he is so angry, and Shen puts him into the ring, saying he is done for and that the calcium supplements are cancelled. As he approaches the door, Shen notices that the skeleton is standing still and did not enter the ring, and asks what the hell he is up to. The system then congratulates him for succeeding. He survived continuous encirclement by both undead and humans. The undead abandoned their hostility, and the humans did the same. The undead left behind the bone medallion and granted him the title the Little Match Seller. The prince of the human empire granted him the name Saint Peppa and performed a sacred ceremony, which means both major races see him as one of their own, trustworthy and worthy of investment. As a fragile human, he reversed a terrible situation through wisdom while surrounded by enemies, turning enemies into friends and profiting from both sides. And this was the main reason he obtained the title One of Their Own for the third time. He is also the first ordinary person to obtain the same title 3 times in a row, breaking every rule, something that seemed impossible, but he did it. The gate then gained a hidden ability, Temporal Stagnation, basic, which, when crossed, can make time on one side stagnate for 3 seconds while the other side remains unchanged. After each use, it cannot be activated again for 1 week, and the next time he advances the quality of a title and acquires an exceptional blue quality or higher, the gate will gain a new ability. Shen asks if he can stop time for 3 seconds once a week, saying the ability is kind of weak, but if it can level up, then there is a way to make it last longer. Temporal stagnation is completed, and the system notifies him that this activation was a test version and does not count as an official use. Shen asks if that is it, complaining that it was way too fast and says it is nothing, that it is just messing with him, thinking that it devoured the title One of Their Own. The system notifies him that the title has been devoured and that he gained 3 attribute points, with his current attribute points at 10. Shen lies down on his bed, saying that it is already 6 in the morning and that this is enough for the day, that he will work hard again the next day, and that he is sleepy and needs to sleep. Someone knocks on the door and Shen asks who it is. The voice replies that it is Qian Rushan and says they are leaving on the aircraft for the exam site. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.